Chapter 124. A group of 704 people dashed towards Death Valley. In less than 10 minutes, they had covered a distance of 30 kilometers and were close to the clouds. But when they got close, all the trainees widened their eyes in disbelief. Between the clouds and them, there was an invisible barrier. It was like an inverted bowl, covering the clouds and mist inside. Outside the barrier, there was not a trace of fog. However, inside the barrier, there were clouds and mist that slowly flowed and rolled. What a strange scene. Quick, go in. The Jasper Lake's secret realm is inside. The black-robed woman shouted coldly. Although the trainees were a little hesitant, they still stepped over the barrier and entered the clouds. Jiang Ci was a little slower. He waited until most of the trainees had entered and confirmed that there was no problem, then he took a step forward. Suddenly, the sky and earth spun. It was similar to the feeling when he entered the illusory space of Lingwan Road. This time, it was a spatial shift. After calming down, he looked around and saw that there was also an invisible barrier behind him. On the contrary, there were endless clouds and mist outside, but inside, there was a vast expanse of heaven and earth without a trace of fog. It seemed that the black-robed woman was right. The Jasper Lake's secret realm was not inside Death Valley. That was just the entrance. This was the real Jasper Lake's secret realm. Grotto Heaven's secret realm, a different space. It was indeed mysterious. He did not know how Genten Budokan discovered it. Jiang Ci shook his head and quickly looked around. In front of him was a desolate wasteland. There was shallow grass as far as the eye could see, and no living creatures could be seen. If there are no living creatures, what kind of danger would there be? Jiang Ci knew that it was impossible for there to be no danger. Otherwise, why would there be survival training? He looked at the radio signal again. This range was relatively stable, and he could contact the black-robed woman at any time. After confirming this, he carefully advanced into the depths of the wasteland alone. Not long after the trainees in the training camp crossed the barrier of Death Valley. In another direction, there was a secret place about 300 kilometers away from them. A small invisible transport plane quietly landed. Two people walked out of it. It was Feng Xian and the leader of his personal guards, Old Yuan. They were both wearing martial artist combat uniforms and carrying weapons as they rushed to Death Valley. Soon, they arrived in front of the barrier. The two of them adjusted the radio frequency. Feng Xian said, "After you enter, wait at the edge of the secret territory. I will inform you if anything happens." Old Yuan nodded. "Be careful, sir. But don't force it. You'll get your revenge in the future. This is the best chance, and also the last chance." Feng Xian's voice was filled with killing intent. After he finished speaking, he directly passed through the barrier and disappeared into the rolling clouds. Old Yuan sighed softly. Of course, he understood what Feng Xian meant. That Jiang Ci's strength had increased too quickly. They had already found out through their spies that Jiang Ci currently possessed the combat power of a peak B class or a beginner A class. Counting the time, it had only been a little over a year since June of last year, and he had grown from a martial arts newbie to his current level. This speed of improvement was too terrifying. If they waited another year, or even half a year, to what extent would Jiang Ci rise? Perhaps Feng Xian would not be a match for Jiang Ci. The reason why Feng Xian had taken the risk of being discovered by the Genten Budokan in such a hurry to kill Jiang Ci was because he was afraid of this. At the same time, on a snowy mountain that was nearly 4,000 meters above sea level at the edge of Death Valley, two figures stood on the cliff of a snowy mountain, overlooking the vast Death Valley and watching the slowly flowing clouds within the invisible barrier. One of them was a handsome young man. He was dressed in white and had a very elegant demeanor. He was White Cloud, who had suddenly appeared when the four great elders of the Genten Budokan were discussing Jiang Ci's new contract. When the four great elders saw him, they had to bow respectfully. This was because his strength was higher than the four great elders. Many years ago, he had reached the realm of A class or above. However, at this time, White Cloud was standing respectfully behind the other young man in black. The young man in black had a chiseled face and bright eyes that hid some vicissitudes of life. At first glance, one could tell that he was a very strong-willed person. He was the founder of the Genten Budokan, Xian Tian, an unpredictable martial artist. In the martial arts world, everyone only knew of his most glorious battle record. Back then, he had single-handedly opened up a human habitat that was second only to the prefectural city, Xian Tian City. He was recognized as the strongest martial artist in the world. However, no one knew how strong Xian Tian was, because he had never been defeated. From where they stood, they could see the trainees of the training camp crossing the invisible barrier. "Master, there are many young people from hidden families in this batch of trainees," White Cloud reminded. Xian Tian smiled gently and said in a deep voice, "After so many years, those hidden families still haven't given up. They want to pry into my secrets. Do they think that by searching the Jade Lake's secret realm, they can find the reason why Li Bai and I rose to power? Master, you have so many secrets. Moreover, we just searched the Jade Lake's secret realm some time ago. These people want to pry into it. I'm afraid it's wishful thinking." White Cloud also laughed. "Why do I feel like you're mocking me?" Xian Tian glanced at him. "I wouldn't dare." White Cloud quickly shook his head. After all the trainees had entered the invisible barrier and disappeared into the clouds, White Cloud sighed again. Compared to those ordinary trainees, these young people from hidden families have a deeper foundation. They reached A-class after the Spirit Chi awakening. Xian Tian's tone was disdainful. "It's just the vitality pill. The more they rely on external objects to improve, the faster they will be left behind in the future." Vitality pill? Is it the kind of medicine that can strengthen one's spiritual consciousness? White Cloud was surprised. After a martial artist's spiritual consciousness was strengthened, coupled with a large amount of spirit chi energy, their strength would increase rapidly. That's right. Only these hidden families that have been hiding for thousands of years have some in stock. However, it's only useful for martial artists. For people like you and me, our spiritual consciousness has already developed into spiritual consciousness. Consuming the vitality pill is useless. Xian Tian nodded gently. White Cloud's expression was one of understanding. At this moment, his tactical communications watch vibrated. He had received a message. He quickly checked it, then looked up and said, "Master, the satellite just discovered that the director of the Liberal Alliance, Feng Xian, and his subordinates have entered the Jade Lake secret realm." Xian Tian was finally interested. He smiled and said, "Oh? This kid really helped us catch a fish. Master, aren't you worried about his safety? According to our intelligence, Feng Xian made a breakthrough during the Spirit Chi awakening half a month ago. He should have reached the peak of A-class. It's okay. He still lacks some training. This Feng Xian is a very good whetstone. He can sharpen his skills." Hearing this, a trace of helplessness flashed through White Cloud's heart. He always felt that his master would go overboard. Chapter 125. White Cloud had been his disciple for many years, and he was confident that he knew his master well. Usually, when his master said that nothing would happen, there was an 80% chance that something would happen. Feng Xian's strength had been tested through many battles. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to climb to the position of one of the 13 directors of the Liberal Alliance. In comparison, although Jiang Xi was talented, he was still young, and his actual combat experience was definitely not as good as Feng Xian's. Moreover, Jiang Xi himself wasn't an A-class martial artist, and there was a gap in strength between them. "I hope that junior sister He too can protect Jiang Xi," White Cloud thought to himself. He had already told He Tu a few days ago, but he was afraid that she didn't listen. Xian Tian seemed to have seen through White Cloud's worries, and chuckled. "Have I, your master, ever done something that I'm not confident in? Don't worry, Jiang Xi's movement technique is the Wind Shadow Step. There won't be any problems in the Jade Lake secret realm." Wind Shadow Step. Master actually passed this movement technique to Jiang Xi? White Cloud was very surprised. Yes, at that time, he had just joined Genten Budokan. I gave him a discount, 30 million, Xian Tian said with a smile. White Cloud was speechless. 30 million, it was completely free. He recalled that many years ago, Li Bai and Senior Bai had asked their master for a few years and paid a huge price to exchange for this wind shadow step from their master. Then, it seemed that they didn't manage to learn it, and changed to another movement technique. Don't be surprised. Jiang Xi is more suitable for this movement technique than Li Bai. This kid has only practiced it for a year, and he has already perfected it. That's why I'm not worried about his safety. Xian Tian smiled. White Cloud, Xian Tian stood with his hands behind his back, and his gaze turned to the Death Valley shrouded in clouds. He seemed to be able to see the Jade Lake secret realm hidden in another space through these barriers and clouds. Jiang Xi, don't let me down. The clouds in the Death Valley seemed to have a mysterious power that teleported everyone to the edge of the Jade Lake secret realm. 700 people. In such a big place, it was very difficult for them to meet each other. Is this the Jade Lake secret realm? Jiang Xi walked for about 50 kilometers in this wasteland, but he still did not find any animals or monsters. Maybe there are no animals on the edge. Jiang Xi speculated, but he did not let down his guard. Just like that, they traveled another 100 kilometers, and the vegetation in front of them finally became more lush. There were even some forests. The environment here looked almost the same as the outside world. However, it was far from the immortal mystic realm that he had imagined. In other words, it should be the difference between heaven and earth. There was no comparison at all. The Jasper Lake mystic realm was one of the top grotto heaven mystic realms in the legends. Walla Walla, there was movement in the forest not far away. There were animals moving through the forest. I've finally seen a living creature. Jiang Xi's spirits were lifted. But in the next moment, he was shocked. Fuck! He saw a beast skeleton coming out of the forest. It was huge and complete. What was equally shocking was that this skeleton monster was actually emitting a B-class aura. What the hell? Roar! This beast skeleton could still roar and pounce on Jiang Xi. Jiang Xi calmed down and realized that the skeleton was only a B-class. He was not afraid and drew his sword to meet the attack. Crack! The A-class killer shadow sword's blade landed on the skeleton's waist and directly cut off a few huge bones. The skeleton monster's movements were affected. It lifted to the right and unleashed a fierce attack. It looks like the skeleton of a tiger-type monster. Jiang Xi sensed the familiar attack. He moved his feet and his speed suddenly increased. He came to the left side of the skeleton monster like lightning. The killer shadow sword also slashed out nearly 100 times in an instant. The power of the fast sword burst out. Voila! The skeleton monster's speed and agility were no match for Jiang Xi. All the sword slashes landed on its body and instantly turned it into a pile of bones. You killed a B-class undead creature, Wine Demon White Tiger. Experience plus 90, the experience panel did not disappoint Jiang Xi. He identified the species of the skeleton monster in front of him: undead creature, Wind Demon White Tiger. These two nouns made Riverward feel bewildered. It was the first time he saw an undead creature, but it was not the first time he saw a Wind Demon White Tiger. The second and fourth stage monsters in the Spirit Cloud path were all Wine Demon White Tigers. No wonder the skeleton monster's attack just now felt so familiar. Is Lingwan Road related to the Jade Lake secret realm? Is this the danger of the Jade Lake secret realm? Jiang Xi continued to move forward with doubts. He remembered the vague reminder of the black-robed woman on the transport plane. She did not mention that there were undead creatures in the Jade Lake secret realm. She was either worried that everyone would panic or wanted to give everyone a surprise. Either way, Jiang Xi was shocked. This world was getting more and more interesting. He walked another 10 kilometers. Bang bang bang. There was a knocking sound on the hillside in the distance. More than a dozen large skeleton monsters walked upright, beating their chests, and rushed toward Jiang Xi with great momentum. 1 A-class and 12 B-class. I can give it a try, but, this movement, could it be a Herculean demonic ape? Jiang Xi was very curious. At the same time, he also wanted to test his strength. Anyway, he was fast. If he couldn't beat them, he could run. Clang clang clang. Jiang Xi rushed up, dodged the attacks with his speed, and then slashed with his sword. To deal with these skeletons, he felt that it was more convenient to use slashing moves. After a while, a pile of scattered bones was left. He gained a lot of experience points. You killed an A-class undead creature, Herculean demonic ape. Experience plus 110, you killed a B-class undead creature, Herculean demonic ape. Experience plus 90, it really is a Herculean demonic ape. Jiang Xi was getting more and more curious. Could it be that Lingwan Road was brought out of the Jade Lake secret realm by the higher-ups of Genten Budokan? It was very possible. Since Genten Budokan could be so extravagant and use the Jade Lake secret realm as a training ground for students, it meant that most of the treasures inside had been plundered. He continued moving forward. His speed was not too fast, about 100 kilometers per hour. As Jiang Xi went deeper, the terrain began to change. There were more mountains and rivers. However, the number of undead creatures also began to increase, and their strength also increased. Most of them were A-class skeletons. Until now, Jiang Xi had not realized how difficult this survival training was. Maybe he was too strong. Then, he quickly shook his head and threw this thought out. He could not be arrogant. He had to be humble and cautious. In fact, Jiang Xi's thinking was correct. He was indeed too strong. This kind of survival training was not too difficult for him. Because this kind of survival training was facing Heaven-class and Earth-class training camp trainees. What was their strength? They were basically between D-class and B-class. Only a few trainees in the top 10 of the Heaven list had A-class combat power. And now, Jiang Xi's combat power was close to that of a top-notch A-class. He was already standing on another level. Why was there a 5% mortality rate in the survival training every year? Because these deaths did not come from killing each other, but from the undead creatures in the Jade Lake secret realm. Chapter 126. At this moment, at a small river less than 200 kilometers away from Jiang Xi, a female trainee from the Earth-level training camp was washing her face and putting on makeup. It was obvious that she loved to look pretty. What the hell is this place? Jade Lake secret realm? It's worse than the wilderness outside. She cursed silently. But at this moment, ripples appeared on the surface of the water. The female trainee's expression changed, and she was about to retreat. But suddenly, a huge skeleton with a long tail leaped out from the water. The skeleton was extremely fast. It opened its mouth and directly bit the female trainee, dragging her into the water. In the clear water, clusters of blood quickly appeared. If Jiang Xi was here, he would notice that this long-tailed skeleton was very similar to the scarlet-shelled earthworm. And if one looked carefully, there were many such long-tailed skeletons in the depths of the river. The same scene was not the only one in this wilderness. Some careless trainees lost their lives because of it. They didn't even have the chance to call for help. Only those who were cautious had a higher chance of survival in such an environment. At the same time, in a valley, 3 trainees were gathered together. They were Qin Feng, Ma Yu, and Xiao Sheng. Xiao Sheng praised, "Young Master Qin's method is really amazing. It can actually teleport the 3 of us in close proximity." Of course. Our Qin family has a long history. These methods can't be seen outside. Qin Feng was a little proud. This was the method that his family elders told him before he came to the training camp. It allowed him to be one step ahead of others in various secret realms. Ma Yu and Xiao Sheng secretly looked at each other. Ma Yu gave a look. So, Chao Xing suddenly smiled and said, "Young Master Qin, before entering the secret realm, do you still want us to do what you asked us to do? If not, let's go our separate ways to gain experience. After all, this is a rare place to gain experience. I also want to see it." Qin Feng said coldly, "Of course we have to do it. There's no satellite surveillance here. It's a good time to teach those two bitches a lesson." "Then who should we teach a lesson first?" Chao Xing asked. "Jiang Ci is too vigilant. I can't put the tracker on him. Now I can only track Haning Xue. Let's teach her a lesson first." Qin Feng said with a ruthless expression before leaving. He had placed a tracker on Haning Xue. He also wanted to use one on Jiang Ci, but he didn't have the chance. Then, the three of them flew in the same direction. Night fell. What surprised Jiang Ci was that the sun rose and the moon set here as well. Furthermore, there were also two moons, exactly the same as the ones in the outside world. Although the Grotto Heaven mystic realm is not in the same space as the real world, it is still on Earth. Jiang Ci understood. Observing the surrounding environment, he found that he should be close to the depths of the Jade Lake secret realm. As far as the eye could see, there were towering mountains and precipitous ridges. Moreover, there were more undead creatures in the mountains. Throughout the day, in addition to the undead creatures of the Ape Clan and the Tiger Clan, there were also undead creatures of the Deer Clan, the Fox Clan, the Wolf Clan, and so on. However, he didn't see any living creatures. The so-called Jade Lake secret realm had become a place for the undead to live. Although the moonlight was bright, Jiang Ci didn't continue to move forward. Instead, he found a high place in the mountains and stopped temporarily. This place has a wide view and is very safe. It's not difficult to survive for 7 days. Jiang Ci took out the roasted B-grade monster meat from his backpack and ate it. Every day at this time, he had to eat something. It had become a habit. This was something he had specially prepared before setting off. He didn't expect it to come in handy. There were only skeleton monsters here. Not even meat could be seen. Soon, it was midnight. The sounds of fighting could be heard from afar, getting closer and closer. Jiang Ci woke up from his cultivation. He quickly hid his body and breathed very slowly. At the same time, he quietly observed the direction of the sound. Damn, is this girl poisonous? Jiang Ci was stunned for a moment. He saw that in the jungle 1,000 meters away, Haning Xue was being chased by someone. She was in a precarious situation. After taking a closer look, Jiang Ci was a little surprised. It was actually Qin Feng, and the others. Ma Yu was at the front, followed by Qin Feng and Chao Xing. These people were a little bold. Save? Or not? Jiang Ci hesitated for a while. Although he didn't have feelings for Haning Xue, she was still a friend. He quickly weighed the pros and cons. Ma Yu and Qin Feng were now A-grade martial artists. Chao Xing was a B-grade martial artist. In terms of strength, if he joined forces with Haning Xue, there would be no problem. However, at this moment, the situation suddenly changed. Ma Yu's speed suddenly increased. He slapped Haning Xue's back and sent her flying. She fell to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. She couldn't escape. No intention to kill. Jiang Ci decided to observe for a while longer. Because Ma Yu didn't use his saber just now, Haning Xue would be dead by now. He was less than 1,000 meters away from them. He could hear the conversation clearly. In the distance, Chao Xing praised, "Young Master Qin has a lot of tricks up his sleeve. He actually has a way to block her communication signal so that she can't ask for help from the outside world." Qin Feng's face was full of pride. This time, he didn't say anything. He walked in front of Haning Xue, who was lying limply on the ground, and sneered, "You bitch, you humiliated me many times. Today, I'll let you have a taste of humiliation." As he spoke, he was about to attack. Haning Xue's face revealed a look of despair. However, Ma Yu stopped Qin Feng and advised, "Young Master Qin, the lesson just now is enough. If anything happens to her, we can't bear the Han family's anger. My Qin family isn't afraid of the Han family." Qin Feng insisted on stepping forward. Pucci, suddenly, there was a soft sound. It was the sound of a sharp blade entering a body. Qin Feng's eyes widened. He felt powerless and fell to the ground. His life was also fading away. In the dark, Jiang Xi, who was about to attack, was also shocked. What happened? Why did they suddenly have an internal conflict? The scene returned to a second ago. Qiao Sheng, who was standing behind Qin Feng, stabbed a dagger into Qin Feng's back without any warning. Even though Qin Feng was an A-grade martial artist, he couldn't defend against Qiao Sheng's sneak attack. Ma Yu changed his previous gentle attitude and mocked, "The Qin family's descendants are getting worse with each generation. They actually produced such an idiot. Why?" Qin Feng's eyes were filled with unwillingness. A-grade martial artists had strong vitality. They wouldn't die in a short time. You should die with your eyes wide open. This Jade Lake secret realm is like a land of the dead. It's a worthy death for you to die here. Qiao Sheng laughed. They didn't intend to say the reason. Ma Yu squatted down and smiled at Han Ningxue. You didn't expect this, right? Han Ningxue also couldn't believe what had just happened. A second ago, they were still talking and laughing. The next second, they killed. Just now, when Ma Yu stopped Qin Feng, she still had a glimmer of hope in her heart. Now, her hope was shattered. Han Ningxue knew that Ma Yu and Qiao Sheng had killed Qin Feng. They would definitely kill her as well. However, she was puzzled. Why didn't Ma Yu immediately attack? Chapter 127. Han Ningxue was puzzled. Soon, Ma Yu gave her an answer. Ma Yu grabbed her right arm and shook it gently. A bell rang. He chuckled and said, "This bell was given to you by your grandmother, right?" Han Ningxue remained silent and glared at him. "I know even if you don't say it. Thank you for delivering the bell to us." Ma Yu laughed and carefully removed the bell from Han Ningxue's wrist. "Have a safe journey." After he kept the bell, he raised his knife and stabbed it toward Han Ningxue's heart. Whoosh! Suddenly, a sword light flashed out from the forest and aimed at Ma Yu's back. Ma Yu's expression changed and he immediately countered the attack. But the sword light was obviously faster than his counterattack. Ding! His knife barely touched the edge of the sword light. The sword light pierced his left shoulder and blood splattered. Ma Yu endured the pain and rolled on the ground. Then, he quickly got up. "It's you." His expression was ugly. Jiang Xi's face was full of pity. Students who were ranked in the top 5 of the heaven list were not simple. His sword strike was so fast that it only took 0.01 seconds, but Ma Yu was still able to react. However, although he did not kill Ma Yu, it was not a big deal. Because Ma Yu's arm was injured and his strength was weakened. "Let us go and we'll let her go," Ma Yu said in a low voice. Behind him, Qiao Sheng's dagger was pressed against Han Ningxue's neck. But, Jiang Xi did not hesitate. It was more important to save her. He was about to nod. Accident happened again. Han Ningxue, who was lying on the ground, suddenly stood up and punched Qiao Sheng, who was close to her. Bang! Crack crack, there was a series of bone-cracking sounds. Qiao Sheng, who had just broken through to B class, had a huge dent in his chest. He flew out for nearly 100 meters and landed on the ground. He was already out of breath and could not be saved. Han Ningxue stood up and panted. She was an expert in fist arts. As an A-class martial artist, her strength was vividly displayed at this moment. This scene gave Jiang Xi and Ma Yu a shock. When did Han Ningxue recover her combat strength? B-class Fey medicine. Ma Yu's expression became extremely ugly. He saw a syringe of medicine at the place where Han Ningxue had collapsed. Qiao Sheng and Jiang, and Ma Yu, when they were not paying attention. Han Ningxue must have used the B-class medicine. The spirit chi energy contained in B-rank Fey potions was no longer effective for A-rank martial artists like them. However, it had a healing effect on the body. But the price was too high. One syringe cost 28.8 billion new moon dollars. Normal people could not afford it. Therefore, when martial artists fought, almost no one would think of this. Jiang Xi was also surprised, but he reacted quickly. He smiled and looked at Ma Yu. Now, you have no bargaining chips. Ma Yu turned and ran. He turned into a blurry shadow and quickly escaped. Want to run? Jiang Xi exerted force on his feet, leaving a huge hole in the ground. His speed immediately increased, and every step covered a distance of 2 to 3 kilometers. Ma Yu was indeed an A-class martial artist, but he had just broken through and had not fully grasped the speed of an A-class martial artist. There was no way to escape. The two figures instantly disappeared. Han Ningxue was left behind. Her face was pale, and it was obvious that she had not fully recovered. "Ningxue, save me," a weak cry for help came from the side. Qin Feng was still struggling. Qiao Sheng's sneak attack was fatal. However, he was already an A-class martial artist and had a strong vitality. There was still a chance to save him. Han Ningxue's face was as cold as ice. She walked in front of Qin Feng and looked at him with disdain. "It's my fault. Ningxue, please forgive me." Qin Feng's expression was anxious. "Goodbye." Han Ningxue was very decisive. She took Qin Feng's long blade and lightly slashed Qin Feng's throat. After doing all this, she turned and chased after Jiang Xi. She did not even look at Qin Feng. A light breeze blew past, and blood quietly flowed. It told those who came later that a battle had happened here. Qin Feng, who only had a trace of consciousness left, only had confusion and unwillingness in his eyes. He had just become an A-class martial artist and wanted to prove himself. However, he did not expect that his life would end like this. What made him even more unwilling was that he found out that Jiang Xi was so powerful. Even Ma Yu was not Jiang Xi's opponent. At the same time, Jiang Xi was chasing after Ma Yu. He had already chased after him for more than 20 kilometers. Since he had the intention to kill, then he might as well kill. In addition, when he was in the training camp, he had noticed that Ma Yu and Qiao Sheng had ulterior motives. They had been hiding something from him. In addition, Ma Yu and Qiao Sheng had mysteriously killed Qin Feng. He felt that these two people were not simple. Today was the day to deal with this threat. You can't escape. Jiang Xi took another step forward and crossed a distance of 2 to 3 kilometers. He was only 1 to 200 meters away from Ma Yu. In the next moment, he would be able to stop Ma Yu. Damn it, why isn't Feng Xian here yet? Ma Yu was extremely anxious. Before entering the Jade Lake secret territory, a director of the Liberal Alliance had contacted him and asked him to be a spy in the secret territory. His main mission was to seize the bell in Han Ningxue's hand and find Jiang Xi's traces at the same time. Therefore, when Jiang Xi appeared in front of them, he sent a distress signal to the director. Through this mission, he had basically confirmed that the director was Feng Xian. Behind him, Jiang Xi caught up. Kill! Jiang Xi's eyes shone with a cold light. With a flash of his sword, he stabbed toward Ma Yu's back. Clang! Ma Yu turned around and blocked the sword with his saber. However, at the same time, he was pushed back dozens of meters by the power of the sword. Jiang Xi, don't kill me. I can tell you a secret. Ma Yu said loudly. What secret? Promise not to kill me first. Okay. Ma Yu breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly said, Feng Xian thinks you're the murderer of his son. This time, he also came to the Jade Lake secret territory. Jiang Xi's expression became slightly more serious. He nodded and said, thank you. No need, Puff. A head flew into the sky. The sword was as fast as lightning. Taking advantage of Ma Yu's relaxed state, it swept past his neck. Sorry, my sword didn't listen to me. Jiang Xi sheathed his sword. He didn't leave immediately. Instead, he bent down and rummaged through Ma Yu's backpack. He was looking for the bell that Ma Yu had taken from Han Ningxue. That thing seemed to be very important. While rummaging through the backpack, he also muttered to himself. Feng Xian actually came. This was something he didn't expect. He thought that Feng Xian would take advantage of his year-end holiday to attack him. He didn't expect him to come at this time. It seemed that Feng Xian really hated him to the core. I have to be more careful in the next few days. Jiang Xi raised his vigilance. With his current strength, he didn't have much confidence in defeating Feng Xian. Found it. Jiang Xi saw the bell in Ma Yu's backpack and was about to reach out to grab it. At this moment, suddenly. Boom boom boom. Sonic booms sounded in the distance. Jiang Xi felt a stabbing pain in the back of his heart. His sharp spiritual sense told him that it was dangerous. Chapter 128. Without hesitation, Jiang Xi threw himself to the ground. Whoosh! A sharp blade landed on the trunk of a large tree in front of him. Crack! The thick tree trunk was split into two. Who's there? Jiang Xi was shocked. His figure flashed, and he reappeared 200 to 300 meters away. He saw a thin middle-aged man suddenly appear where he was just standing. Feng Xian. Jiang Xi's eyes narrowed slightly. Ever since Feng Xian had issued that huge bounty, he had specifically searched for information about Feng Xian and knew what he looked like. He really came at the drop of a hat. Feng Xian's face was gloomy, and his killing intent was obvious. He looked like he wanted nothing more than to skin Jiang Xi alive. The two of them did not exchange any words. Their actions and expressions reflected everything. Run! Jiang Xi did not try to be brave. He turned around and ran at top speed. In an instant, he disappeared into the forest. Strangely, Feng Xian did not immediately chase after him. He first bent down and did the same action as Jiang Xi. He rummaged in Ma Yu's backpack for a while and found the bell that Jiang Xi did not have time to take. You killed my son. You can't escape. Feng Xian moved his feet and chased after Jiang Xi. Every step was 3,000 to 4,000 meters. He was actually faster than Jiang Xi by 3 minutes. Jiang Xi sprinted through the forest. In just 10 seconds, he had covered 20 to 30 kilometers. His speed was already very fast, but his expression was very solemn. Too sudden. Feng Xian came too quickly. It was beyond his expectations. In the martial arts world of Jianghai Prefecture and even the martial arts world of Dexia, Feng Xian's presence was very low and he was relatively mysterious. Everyone only knew that Feng Xian was an A-class martial artist, but did not know which martial artist faction he belonged to. Jiang Xi only learned that Feng Xian was one of the 13 most powerful directors of the Liberal Alliance after he arrived at the heaven-level training camp. To be able to sit in this position, his strength was naturally not weak. In order to find out more about Feng Xian, Jiang Xi had asked his teacher, Yu Lin, about Feng Xian. Yu Lin's evaluation was that he was an expert between the second and third ranks of the martial arts world. Jiang Xi also had some understanding of A-class martial artists. The strength of an A-class warrior was further divided into 4 tiers. The first group was naturally Shen Tian, Li Baibai, and the others. Their strength had surpassed the level of martial artists. The second group, such as the 4 elders of Genten Budokan, were at this level. They were top-notch A-class martial artists and were only a step away from surpassing A-class. The third group, such as the 12 deacons of Genten Budokan and the presidents of the martial arts associations of the prefectures of Dexia, had combat strength close to top-notch A-class. Although they could enter the A-class realm at any time, their actual combat strength was 1 level lower than top-notch A-class. The fourth group were ordinary A-class martial artists. People at this level included the instructors of the Heaven-level training camp and the masters of the Gen 10 Budokan branches. Now, there should be another fifth group, which included A-class martial artists like Han Xue and Qin Feng who had advanced with the help of external forces, as well as geniuses who were not A-class martial artists but barely possessed A-class combat strength. Jiang Xi knew that his strength should be slightly stronger than the fourth group, but slightly weaker than the third group. Based on this calculation, he was a whole level lower than Feng Xian, perhaps even more. This was because this did not take into account whether Feng Xian had made a breakthrough during this spirit qi revival. Had he reached top-notch A-class? Therefore, when he had learned from Ma Yu that Feng Xian had also come to the Jade Lake secret realm, he had planned to escape. Jiang Xi's plan was to first hide from this pursuit and then develop in a low-key manner for 2 or 3 months. When he had truly become an A-class martial artist and his strength had surpassed Feng Xian, he would then make a fuss about these matters. However, he had not expected that Feng Xian would come as he wished and not give him a chance to develop at all. This is going to be troublesome. Jiang Xi frowned. Whoosh whoosh, under the night sky, a whistling sound came from the forest behind him. Feng Xian had caught up. He's faster than me. Jiang Xi's heart skipped a beat. Speed was his forte, but at this time, he had lost his advantage in speed. There was no way he could fight. With this speed, he must have reached top-notch A-class. What should I do? Am I going to have a breakthrough again? Jiang Xi's mind raced. This time, the situation was somewhat different. If he had a breakthrough and failed to kill Feng Xian, then his secret would be exposed to Feng Xian. I can't escape even if I don't use it. Jiang Xi knew that he had no other choice. While he was thinking, his footsteps did not stop. Using the wind shadow steps to the extreme, his speed became faster and faster. His whole body became even more blurry, leaving behind afterimages in the night sky. Under the illumination of the twin moons, the mountains appeared rather tranquil. Occasionally, the roars of the undead creatures could be heard. Boom! Suddenly, in the depths of the mountains, clusters of dark clouds gathered. Strong winds blew, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. The dark clouds covered the twin moons, and the Jasper Lake secret realm became dusky. Only the lightning in the distance released some light, cutting across the night sky time and time again. There! Jiang Xi had a feeling that there was something in the depths of the mountains that was attracting him. There was a chance for change there. As if he was confirming something, his footwork suddenly became even more mysterious, and his speed increased a little. Did I have a breakthrough in the wind shadow steps? Jiang Xi was slightly stunned. He looked at the experience panel. Wind shadow steps, combine 400,004,0000, there was no breakthrough. That's not right. It seems that the environment has changed, and it's more suitable for the wind shadow steps. The wind around him became stronger, fitting the essence of the wind shadow steps. It was extremely fast and erratic. Jiang Xi was pleasantly surprised and puzzled. Soon, he crossed the mountains. About 10 kilometers behind him, Feng Xian's face became more and more gloomy. His speed increased. Just now, he could still see Jiang Xi's tracks, and he was getting closer and closer to Jiang Xi now. The distance between him and Jiang Xi was slowly increasing. Immediately after, he also saw the abnormality in the depths of the mountains. Dense lightning and dark clouds. What a strange scene. Is he running in that direction? Feng Xian found another trace of Jiang Xi. He did not think too much about it. His attention was completely attracted by Jiang Xi's hatred. His footsteps moved, and he quickly chased after him. A minute later, Jiang Xi crossed another mountain and finally saw the situation in the distance. He saw that between the mountains and under the dark clouds, there was a huge mountain that occupied an extremely large area. It towered into the clouds as if it was going to pierce the sky. The upper half of the mountain was shrouded in fog, and the situation inside could not be seen clearly. Only the lower half could be seen. The lightning that looked like knives and swords kept falling, as if it was going to split the mountain in half. This mythical scene shocked Jiang Xi. Moreover, he realized that as he approached the mountain, the feeling in his heart became clearer, and his spirit sense became sharper. What exactly is on the mountain? Jiang Xi decided to give it a try. If this continued, he would definitely be caught by Feng Xian in the end. In just a moment, he arrived in front of the mountain of unknown height. Standing at the foot of the mountain seemed to be emitting a powerful spiritual pressure, making people involuntarily feel awe. Jiang Xi's gaze was attracted by a huge stone tablet at the foot of the mountain. On it were written ancient words that clearly did not belong to this era. But the strange thing was that he could understand the words at a glance. It was as if a message was conveyed through his spiritual consciousness. Tongtian Mountain. What a domineering name. However, these three words reminded Jiang Xi of his home in Pak Sun Province, Tongtian District. The martial artist districts of the various Genten Budokan prefectural martial arts hall branches all had this name. It was obvious that the higher-ups of Genten Budokan had borrowed the two words, Tongtian. Chapter 129. The upper half of the towering sky-span mountain was shrouded in thick fog. In the sky, there were patches of dark clouds. Dense lightning fell continuously, making this huge mountain peak look extremely dangerous. If one were to rashly climb the mountain, they would easily be struck by lightning. Boom boom boom, in the forest behind him, there was a faint sound of sonic booms. It was Feng Xian approaching. These lightning bolts seem dense, but there are gaps. As long as I'm careful and don't get hit, there won't be a problem. Jiang Xi did not hesitate. Relying on his intuition, he climbed the mountain against the lightning. Soon, when he stepped onto the sky-span mountain, a shocking scene appeared. Those lightning bolts seemed to be unable to hit him. A few of them just happened to land a meter away from him. If it was an exception, it would be fine. But when Jiang Xi walked for more than 1,000 meters, he turned around. He turned around to take a look. The path he had just taken was completely covered by lightning. Although he was puzzled, the current situation was advantageous to him. These lightning bolts helped him hide his tracks. After carefully walking another 2,000 to 3,000 meters, the situation was still the same. Jiang Xi was slightly relieved. His climbing speed increased slightly. A moment later, he arrived at the mountainside. This seemed to be a boundary point of the sky-span mountain. There was no lightning on the upper half of the sky-span mountain, only fog. Standing here and looking down the mountain, one could clearly see that the lightning bolts seemed to never stop pouring down, covering the lower half of the mountain. I wonder if Feng Xian has caught up. I wish him good luck. Jiang Xi continued climbing and entered the fog. The fog was pervasive and visibility was very low. After reaching this position, he realized that the inexplicable attraction was getting stronger and stronger, especially when he used Wind Shadow Step with all his might. At the top of the mountain, Jiang Xi followed his intuition and kept moving forward. After walking for about 10 kilometers, they finally came to a stop. Suddenly, he heard the sound of water ripples. It was quiet and serene, making one calm down unconsciously. There's a spring on the mountain. Jiang Xi's heart skipped a beat after climbing for more than 100 steps. The terrain suddenly opened up. He had reached the top of the mountain. Could this be the Jade Lake? Jiang Xi's eyes widened. There was an endless lake in front of them. The surface of the lake rippled as wisps of mist rose and filled the air. So the fog is coming from here. Jiang Xi came to a realization and looked around. He could see that there were many small peaks by the lake. In the distance, a mountain peak about 100 meters high caught his attention. That was where the inexplicable attraction came from. Jiang Xi's figure flashed, and arrived in front of the peak. At this time, Feng Xian followed Jiang Xi's trail and arrived in front of Mount Tongtian. He was also stunned by this mythical scene. He looked at it for a while. Sky-piercing mountain. The Jade Lake's secret realm actually has such a magical place. It seems like the rumors back then were true. Xian Tian, Li Baibai, and the others obtained a fortuitous encounter on a mountain in the Jade Lake's secret realm and rose to prominence. Now that I've also found this mountain, it seems like I have the same opportunity. Feng Xian's eyes flickered. He was very tempted. He had just broken through some time ago, and he was only a step away from the realm of A-class and above. Once he obtained an opportunity, he could break through again and become a first-tier elite. However, the lightning that kept falling made Feng Xian hesitate. It'll be troublesome if I get hit by a few of such dense lightning bolts. However, since that kid is willing to brave the lightning and rush up, I'm not afraid. Then, he turned into a blurry shadow and instantly stepped on the path of climbing the mountain. However, he had only taken a few steps. Boom! A bolt of lightning as thick as a thumb landed on his head, causing his body to freeze. What a powerful force! It's not an ordinary lightning bolt. Feng Xian was not too concerned. Being hit by a few lightning bolts occasionally was within his acceptable range. He was very confident that with the strength of a top-tier A-class martial artist, he could withstand the power of these lightning bolts. He took a few more steps. Boom! Another bolt of lightning struck his head. His body froze, and this time, his body was clearly a little numb. It's okay, it's okay. I can still, boom. Before he could finish his sentence, another bolt of lightning struck. Feng Xian's face was a little black. Some of it was left behind by the lightning, but some of it was really black. Even I'm affected by such powerful lightning bolts. Although that kid's combat power is strong, he's only a B-class. His body is definitely not as strong as mine. Maybe he's already been struck to death by such dense lightning bolts. Feng Xian thought about it from a different perspective and felt much better. Boom! Boom! Next, Feng Xian was struck by lightning for almost every 3 steps he took. I can only use my speed to rush over. Feng Xian sprinted up the mountain. Then, he realized that the faster he was, the more frequent the lightning bolts were. Finally, he reached the halfway point of the mountain, the boundary between the fog and the lightning. There was lightning at the bottom of the mountain, and fog at the top. Feng Xian heaved a sigh of relief. Wisps of green smoke rose from his explosive hairstyle. If it wasn't for the strong body of an A-class martial artist, he might have already turned into charcoal. He looked at the lightning bolts that kept falling from the sky and confirmed his speculation. I haven't seen any trace of that kid along the way. He must have been buried by the lightning. Then, Feng Xian made some adjustments and recovered some strength. Looking at the fog on the mountain, he said to himself excitedly, "Now, let's start looking for my opportunity." His figure quickly disappeared into the fog on the upper half of Sky Span Mountain. Along the way, he didn't encounter any danger and smoothly reached the top of the mountain. This is the Jade Lake. When Feng Xian saw the lake at the top of the mountain, he was stunned. But then, he was attracted by the things beside the lake. 100-year spirit item. No, there's also a 1,000-year spirit item. Feng Xian was ecstatic. In the hazy fog in the distance, in an open space that looked like a vegetable garden, there were 5 plants that emitted a spiritual aura swaying in the wind. 3 of them were about a meter tall and were 100-year spirit items. They all bore fruits and looked very tempting. The other 2 were more than 2 meters tall and were 1,000-year spirit items. They also bore fruits and emitted a stronger spiritual aura. The distance between each spirit item was about 400 to 500 meters. The chances of an A-class martial artist breaking through after consuming a 100-year spirit item are very small. But if it's a 1,000-year spirit item, I can definitely break through to the A-class realm. This is my opportunity. Feng Xian's heart thumped. Excited. However, he didn't act rashly. His many years of martial arts experience told him that wherever there were treasures, there would definitely be danger. The simplest way. He picked up a stone from the lake and threw it behind one of the 100-year spirit items. Whoosh! The stone was very fast and disappeared into the fog. Roar! A huge figure roared and pounced out of the fog. Its sparkling white bones indicated its identity. It was an undead creature. Chapter 130. Jiang Xi stood in front of the 100-meter-high peak, his face full of surprise. This is... Lingwan Road was originally here. At this time, from where he stood, he could see that one side of the peak seemed to have been cut 3 times with a knife, and a large piece had been neatly dug out. After careful comparison, the marks that had been dug out just happened to match the Lingwan Road of the training camp. Looking to the side, he saw that there was a pit below. Looking at the shape, it also matched the stone block known as Wondrous Rock Mountain. Jiang Xi roughly understood that Lingwan Road and Wondrous Rock Mountain were indeed carried back by Xian Tian from here. But why does this place have a mysterious attraction to me? Is it because I have cultivated in Lingwan Road and Wondrous Rock Mountain? Jiang Xi was very puzzled, but after thinking about it, he shook his head. The trainees of the Heaven-level training camp had all cultivated in Lingwan Road and Wondrous Rock Mountain. If this was the reason, then it couldn't be just him that was attracted. In order to figure out the doubts in his heart, he circled the peak a few times. In the end, he didn't find anything. But that attraction had always been there. Could it be up there? Jiang Xi looked up at the sky, but unfortunately, there were only dark clouds and fog pervading between heaven and earth. There are the auras of other martial artists. Suddenly, he sensed 2 powerful auras coming from the other side of the lake. One of them is Feng Xian's aura, but who is the other one? Jiang Xi's heart skipped a beat. He memorized the location of the peak, then circled around the lake, quietly heading in the direction of the aura. He didn't rashly cross the seemingly endless lake directly. It was better to be cautious. Who knew if there was something terrible in the water? The thick fog made a good camouflage for him, so he didn't have to worry about being discovered. After a while, Jiang Xi approached his destination. He hid in a depression between several peaks, making it difficult to be discovered. Then, he looked into the distance. Feng Xian and an undead ape. What a strong aura! Jiang Xi was a little surprised at the same time. He was a little puzzled. He noticed that Feng Xian's hairstyle had turned into an afro, and there were many burn marks on his combat uniform. Feng Xian has fought with others before. Why are you in such a sorry state? Before he could think about it carefully, his eyes lit up. It's actually a spiritual object. He saw the 5 phase growing in the open space. Although he was tempted, Jiang Xi did not act rashly. Firstly, he was no match for Feng Xian. Secondly, he was worried that there were other dangers hidden in this place. This place was filled with a strange and mysterious atmosphere, and he couldn't see through it. Let's wait and see. They're about to fight. On the other side, Feng Xian smashed a skeleton monster with a stone. This aura is only at the 3rd tier of A class. Feng Xian smiled slightly. He had made a breakthrough during the Spirit Chi awakening some time ago, and his strength was now at the 2nd tier of A class, the peak of A class combat power. It seems that these 5 phase are fated to be with me, Feng Xian. He was in a good mood now. The murderer of his son had most likely died under the lightning. Now, he had encountered such an opportunity. I, Feng Xian, will also stand at the top of the 1st tier of martial arts. He was full of confidence. After saying that, he directly rushed toward the huge A-class skeleton ape. He slashed out with his saber, and a huge saber shadow shot out. Boom! The skeleton ape waved its huge bony palm and blocked the attack, and it retreated dozens of steps. Whether you're a living thing or not, you can't escape the law of the jungle. Feng Xian laughed loudly and attacked again with his saber. Roar! The skeleton ape, which was close to 10 meters tall, suddenly pounded its chest angrily and roared at the sky. Roar! 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 In an instant, deep within the thick fog, 4 angry roars responded to it. Boom! 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 Four huge skeletal figures broke through the thick fog and arrived in front of the phase. They were all undead creatures guarding the phase. Feng Xian held his breath. He was shocked. This was because he realized that two of the four undead creatures that had just appeared were also skeleton apes, and their strength was at the third tier of A-class. What surprised him was that the remaining two skeletons with long tails were actually transformed from crypt flame dragons. They had huge bodies of white bones and long tails that were as sharp as blades. These two were at the second tier of A-class, and their auras were slightly stronger than his. Roar! The five undead creatures roared at Feng Xian in unison and pounced toward him. Damn it! Feng Xian cursed and turned to leave. Boom! However, the two long-tailed skeletons, which had the strength of a second-tier A-class warrior, were obviously much faster. Their sparkling white bone tails whistled as they swept towards Feng Xian. Clang! Feng Xian blocked one of them. Boom! The other landed heavily on Feng Xian's body. Like a cannonball, he was sent flying and spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. He landed heavily on a rock beside the lake and almost fell into the lake. About 3,000 meters away, Jiang Xi watched quietly from a depression on a mountain peak. He could not understand the battle in the distance. How strange! The five undead creatures did not pursue and attack. They only repelled Feng Xian and did not continue attacking. If they had chased after him just now, Feng Xian would not have had a chance to survive. Feng Xian also noticed this. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, picked up a large rock, and threw it heavily at one of the skeletons. Shio! The rock was like a cannonball. Roar! The A-class skeletons dodged the rock and roared at Feng Xian. However, they did not charge forward. Shio! 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 Feng Xian threw a few more rocks. After a few probing, the five undead creatures seemed to be restricted and could not fight back. They can't leave that open space that looks like a vegetable garden. Jiang Xi's eyes flashed as he saw the pattern. From his position, he could see that the five undead creatures were standing in an arc. In the face of Feng Xian's constant provocation, they only roared and did not take another step forward. Formation. This word suddenly appeared in Jiang Xi's mind. It was very possible. The things he was in contact with now were getting closer and closer to myths. With this thought, he continued to observe the situation in the distance. At this time, Feng Xian also confirmed this pattern. The feeling of having a treasure mountain in front of him but not knowing where to start made him very uncomfortable. It was almost impossible to steal the spiritual item under the protection of these five undead creatures. I have to find help. Zhong Su and Tashi should be near Shushan Prefecture at this time. They will be here in an hour at most. I can ask them to come over and help. Feng Xian frowned and thought for a while before making this decision. These two people had been through life and death situations with him, so they were trustworthy people. Since he couldn't monopolize such a fortuitous opportunity, he had to bring in someone he trusted. Immediately, he used his tactical communications watch to send a message to Zhong Su and Tashi, explaining the situation. You called for help? Jiang Xi noticed Feng Xian's actions. He smiled slightly and made a decision in his heart. Chapter 131. The moonlight grew brighter and brighter. The primeval forest around Death Valley was filled with the roars of beasts from time to time. The invisible barrier was like an inverted bowl that completely covered Death Valley. Inside, clouds and mist flowed slowly. It looked very mysterious. Xian Tian and White Cloud stood on a tall mountain nearby and looked at Death Valley. Master, someone else has entered. One of them is the second director of the Liberal Alliance from the Shadow Kingdom. The other two are Feng Xian's friends, White Cloud suddenly reminded him. His tactical communications watch had just received a message. Oh? Someone finally came. Xian Tian smiled and didn't mind. It seems that the Spirit Qi revival has made many people bold. They actually dare to ignore the declaration of our Genten Budokan. Master, let me do it. White Cloud said seriously. Many years ago, when the Jade Lake secret realm was first discovered, the Genten Budokan had announced to the public that the Jade Lake secret realm belonged to the Genten Budokan of the Desya Kingdom. Any martial artists who belonged to other countries were prohibited from entering. Since the announcement, no one dared to take the risk to enter the Jade Lake secret realm. Now, a few heavyweight martial artists from the Liberal Alliance had actually entered openly. Although the Liberal Alliance wasn't a national force, the nature of the organization meant that they weren't martial artists of the Desya Kingdom. This time, Feng Xian and the others had entered. It was obvious that they didn't care about the Genten Budokan. White Cloud was angry and wanted to teach them a lesson. Xian Tian chuckled and said, "It's fine. It's just fishing. Why are you in such a hurry? Only a few came. It's not enough. The more the better." White Cloud, when he heard his master say that it was fine, his intuition told him that there was an 80% chance that something was wrong. On the peak of Mount Tongtian, the clear lake was like a mirror with slight ripples. Jiang Xi hid in the depressions of the peaks. He was very patient and motionless. The view here was good and he could see the surrounding environment clearly. In particular, he could see the 5 spirit plants swaying in the wind. Each of them had a fruit that emitted a faint spirit aura. It was very tempting. Jiang Xi was naturally very tempted. However, one had to know one's own limits. He didn't have the strength to fight for it now. Even Feng Xian, whose strength was at the 2nd tier of A rank, could only flee pathetically when faced with those undead creatures. If he went, he wouldn't end up any better. Jiang Xi calmed down and thought about it carefully. Some doubts arose in his heart. Logically speaking, 3 of the 5 phase were 100-year phase, while the other 2 were 1,000-year phase. How many experts could these phase nurture? It was impossible for the higher-ups of Genten Budokan not to notice such a high value. Why wasn't there anyone guarding this place? But now, it was discovered by someone else. Jiang Xi could clearly see that Feng Xian hadn't gone anywhere. He was sitting cross-legged on a rock by the lake. He wasn't cultivating. Instead, he was staring at the 5 phase in the open space not far away. The 5 undead creatures only roared at Feng Xian to declare their territorial sovereignty. After that, they ignored Feng Xian. Instead, they kept wandering around the phase, guarding against anyone who came to snatch them. The higher-ups of Genten Budokan shouldn't be so stupid, right? Jiang Xi thought to himself. Perhaps the higher-ups had other considerations. He could only think this way to show some respect to the higher-ups. Another 40 minutes or so passed. 3 figures rushed over from the foot of the mountain. When they stood still, Jiang Xi realized that 2 of them were people he had seen before. They were Zhong Su and Ta Shi. Back in Ruin No. 09, he had taken advantage of the 2 of them. While they were fighting with the 2-headed demon wolf, he had taken away the unripe dragon spirit fruit. Their appearances hadn't changed much. Zhong Su still looked like a middle-aged man. He held a long staff in his hand. He had thick eyebrows and thin eyes. His gaze was very intimidating. Ta Shi, on the other hand, was the young man who used a sword. His face was cold and grim. Putting these 2 aside, Jiang Xi focused on the other middle-aged white man. He was wearing a white warrior suit. His body was thin, and his aura was very fierce. It feels like he's stronger than Elder Tang. He's definitely a 2nd-tier A-rank powerhouse. Jiang Xi was shocked and slowed his breathing. Through observation, he could see that Feng Xian didn't seem to be happy with the white man's arrival. His face was a little gloomy. Feng Xian first exchanged glances with Zhong Su and Ta Shi. The 2 of them shook their heads, hiding their helplessness. "Sam, why are you here?" Feng Xian asked in a deep voice. The white man, Sam, had his eyes locked on the 5 phase from the beginning. His eyes were filled with greed. Even when he heard Feng Xian's question, his eyes didn't leave the 5 phase. He spoke awkwardly in Mandarin and answered with a smile, "When Zhong Su and the others went to apply for the Liberal Alliance's transport plane, I happened to be at the Liberal Alliance's base in Shushan Prefecture. When I heard that they were coming to this plateau, I knew that you must be in trouble. Feng Xian, you can't do this. Our Liberal Alliance's motto is to help each other. If you're in trouble, you have to inform me, right? You're the backbone of our Liberal Alliance. If something happens to you, we'll all be sad." Feng Xian's face was full of smiles, but he was cursing in his heart. "Shameless son of a bitch. If you could take your eyes off the 5 Fays when you speak, I might believe you a little more." Of course, he could only mutter these words in his heart because Sam was stronger than him. Among the 13 directors of the Liberal Alliance, other than the mysterious founder who never showed his face, Sam was the strongest. Before the Third Awakening of Qi, Sam, who was known as the White-Clothed Director, was already a top-notch A-rank martial artist and was in the second tier of A-rank. Now, what made Feng Xian apprehensive was that Sam's body was faintly emitting a spiritual pressure. This was a sign that he was about to break through to the A-rank realm. Sam had become even stronger. Feng Xian didn't dare to be careless. With their current strength, the 3 of them together might not be able to defeat Sam. This was a wolf. The 5 skeletons in front of us look so evil. Feng Xian, in order to prove our friendship, let me represent God and destroy these evil existences. Sam made a gesture. Feng Xian, Zhong Su, and Tashi all cursed in their hearts. They had never seen such a shameless person. "Don't worry, Sam. Just the 2 long-tailed skeletons transformed from the crypt flame dragons have the strength of the second tier of A-rank. With the addition of the other 3, it will be very difficult for us to deal with them. I think it's better to plan first before making a move." Feng Xian squeezed out a smile on his face. "Oh, you're right. You're still the most comprehensive one." Sam gave a thumbs up, looking as if he had just realized something. Feng Xian and the other 2 heaved a sigh of relief and were about to speak. Sam pretended to be deep in thought and said, "How about this? There's an old saying in the great Xia country, it's a blessing to suffer losses. Let me suffer some losses and deal with the 2 powerful and evil long-tailed skeletons. You guys deal with the other 3 skeletons that look like gorillas. However, according to the theory that effort is proportional to the reward, I'll reluctantly." Well, reluctantly. This word should be correct. "I'll reluctantly take the 2,000-year-old spirit items as spoils of war. As for the other 300-year-old spirit items, the 3 of you can divide them equally. What do you think of my plan?" Sam grinned, and a frightening spiritual pressure emanated from his body. Feng Xian and the other 2 looked at each other. Their expressions didn't look too good, but facing Sam's undisguised threat, they could only nod. The law of the jungle was universal everywhere. Chapter 132. From his position, Jiang Xi could hear the conversation between Feng Xian and the others. However, the content of the conversation between Feng Xian and the Caucasian man made Jiang Xi suspicious. From the looks of it, the Caucasian man named Sam is not with Feng Xian. This is going to be a good show. He loved this kind of dog-eat-dog scene the most. In the distance, Feng Xian and the others began to attack after they had reached an agreement. Sam leaped high, and a powerful aura erupted. The broadsword in his hand directly dispersed the surrounding fog, and the vision became clearer. Whoosh! One could clearly see that the giant sword had landed heavily on a long-tailed skeleton that was transformed from a crypt flame dragon. Crack, a few white bones shattered. Roar! The long-tailed skeleton let out an earth-shattering roar, and its long tail swept toward Sam like a blade. Huh! Sam laughed loudly without any fear. He held the broadsword and slashed hundreds of times in an instant. Clang! 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 An intense battle. Another long-tailed skeleton also roared and pounced toward Sam from behind. As if he had eyes on the back of his head, Sam turned his body and waved his sword to block the attack from behind. This is a spirit nurture technique. Zhong Su said in horror. He has a spiritual sense that can detect the situation around him. Tashi also exclaimed. It's still not enough. His spiritual sense has not been fully condensed. Otherwise, these 5 undead creatures together would not be enough for him to kill. Feng Xian shook his head. At the same time, he cursed in his heart. If it were not for this shameless bastard, he could have gotten all 5 spirit items together with Zhong Su and Tashi. With that, he could have become a powerhouse that surpassed Class A. Damn it! Feng Xian was driven mad. He gritted his teeth and shouted, "Let's attack too." As he spoke, he rushed toward one of the ape clan skeletons. 100-year spirit item could also help him break through. It was better than nothing. Zhong Su and Tashi also attacked one of the ape clan skeletons each. Both of them had the strength of a 3rd-tier Class A, which was similar to the ape clan skeletons. Although they could not crush them, it was still quite easy to deal with them in comparison. Feng Xian seemed very relaxed. He had the strength of a 2nd-tier A-class warrior, and he could completely suppress that ape skeleton. Every slash accurately landed on the huge skeletal body, shattering the translucent white bones one after another. Boom! Boom! On this side of the lake, the battle was getting more and more intense. The 4 of them purposely avoided the 5 spirit items to avoid damaging the ripened fruits. The battle was in a stalemate. At present, it seemed that Feng Xian had the absolute advantage. Although Sam was strong, he had to face 2 2nd-stage A-class undead creatures at the same time. For the time being, he was unable to gain the upper hand. Jiang Ci was still hiding in the depression, motionless. While watching the battle in the distance, he was also thinking about what he had just heard. Spirit nurturing stage. Is this the realm of A-class and above? Condensing spiritual awareness. Could it be that the spiritual awareness is about to change? Jiang Ci thought for a while and put his doubts to the bottom of his heart. He was going to explore it in detail after the survival training was over. For now, it was better to focus on the battle in the distance. Although the open space was similar to a vegetable garden, it was actually very large. The 5 spirit items were separated by 400 to 500 meters. In other words, Feng Xian and the others were very far apart. They would not be able to end this battle for the spirit items in a short time. Maybe there's a chance to get a spirit item. Jiang Ci had a flash of inspiration, and his eyes lit up. There's still time. I can use the A-class spirit item medicine first and see if it can raise me to A-class. If it succeeds, my strength will improve, and I will have a greater chance. He did as he said. Jiang Ci hid in the depression of the mountain peak, took out the A-class spirit item medicine syringe, and used it immediately. After the pure white spirit item medicine entered his body, it instantly turned into an extremely impactful spirit energy that spread to every part of his body. Even with the strength of a B-class warrior's body, he still felt a tearing pain all over his body from the inside out. His bones, muscles, blood vessels, and even his skin felt like they were about to split open. It's not time yet. Jiang Ci endured the pain. He wanted to use this impact to break through the rank bottleneck. In just 3 seconds, under the impact of the enormous spirit energy, the bottleneck from B-class to A-class loosened. It was as if a layer of membrane had been pierced and was full of cracks. It's done. Jiang Ci was pleasantly surprised. Increased by 1,000 experience points. In the next moment, the spirit energy that was wreaking havoc in his body rapidly decreased. At the same time, his physical fitness had finally achieved a breakthrough. From B-class to A-class, he had completed a qualitative upgrade. His strength, speed, agility, and various sensory abilities had undergone earth-shattering changes. The enhancement of his physical fitness also made him feel that the spirit energy in his body was not as strong, and the tearing pain was greatly reduced. An A-class warrior's body could withstand the impact of the A-class spirit item medicine. However, he still had to digest the spirit energy. Otherwise, it would be a waste. Increased by 1,000 experience points. Increased by 1,000 experience points. After repeating this 8 times, the spirit energy from the A-class spirit item medicine was almost exhausted. The spirit energy had allowed him to increase by a total of 9,000 experience points. Jiang Xi's strength had also reached a new height. He opened the experience panel and checked. Level, Pulse Opening Realm, A, 900-025900, Cultivation Technique, 9 Elements Heart Sutra Martial Technique, 9 Elements Sword Art, Combine, 300-003000, Wind Shadow Step, Combine, 400-004000, Force Exertion, 10 Experience Points, 136049, very strong. For once, Jiang Xi was confident. Hiding in the dark, he gently clenched his fist. There was a powerful force flowing between his fingers. Before reaching A-class, I already had the combat power of a peak A-class warrior and was slightly stronger than a third-tier A-class warrior. Now, my combat power has increased by a whole level and should have surpassed the second-tier A-class warrior. As for the first-tier A-class warrior, Jiang Xi did not dare to think about it. That was a strength that surpassed A-class. Perhaps it could no longer be described as an A-class warrior. Spirit Nurturing Realm. This was what he had heard from Feng Xian and the others. Just like this, after a few more minutes and seconds, Jiang Xi confirmed that the changes in his body had completely calmed down. Only then did he turn his gaze back to the open space that looked like a vegetable garden. Although it sounded long, the entire process only took 1 minute. At the same time, Feng Xian and the others were still fighting fiercely with the 5 undead creatures. The battle was still in a stalemate. I can't be greedy. I'll pick that fruit that looks like a peach. Among the 5 spirit items, 2 of them were 1,000-year-old spirit items. The fruits they bore were the peach and the dragon fruit. Without even thinking about it, he set his sights on the peach. This was the Jasper Lake secret realm. Since ancient times, there were too many myths and legends that happened here. Among them, there were myths and legends related to peaches. For example, monkey steals peach. Chapter 133. There were a total of 601 trainees from the Heaven Level and Earth Level training camps. Although the black-robed woman, Hei Tu, and the 3 Gen 10 Budokan deacons were there to rescue them, they could not guarantee that they would arrive in time every time. Therefore, more than 10 trainees died in the Jasper Lake secret realm in just 1 day. However, those who survived had already adapted to the environment after a day of survival training. Especially the Heaven Level training camp trainees who were ranked at the top of the Sky leaderboard. With their A-class strength, they explored more than half of the Jasper Lake secret realm. Mount Tongtian was so majestic. The scene formed by lightning and clouds was like a legend. It could be seen from afar. Soon, some trainees discovered this magical place. And more than one person discovered it. However, unlike Jiang Xi, they did not rashly climb the mountain. Because the scene at the lower half of Mount Tongtian and the lightning made them fearful. The trainees in the Heaven Level training camp were divided according to the region. The number of trainees from the 7 major prefectures was about the same. But if they were divided according to the forces, the trainees' backgrounds were complicated. They mainly came from the military of the Xia Kingdom, the 4 major college of martial arts, and other official organizations. There were also Gen 10 Budokan, Sukushin Budokan, and other martial arts forces, as well as various hidden families. These trainees from various forces who could enter the Heaven Level and Earth Level training camps were basically the elites of their respective forces. After they discovered Heavenspan Mountain, without prior agreement, they all informed the situation here to the upper echelons or elders of their own factions. It was worth mentioning that when the Gen 10 Budokan first opened the Heaven Level training camp, the first rule was that only people from the Xia Kingdom would be accepted. But there was no lack of traitors in any era. Although some trainees wore the identity of the Xia Kingdom, they were actually traitors of external forces. For example, Ma Yu, who was killed by Jiang Xi, and Xiao Sheng, who was killed by Hanning Xue with 1 punch, were all traitors. Now, some of the trainees who discovered Mount Tongtian had similar identities. They were originally tasked with exploring the Jade Lake mystic realm. After discovering the wonders of the sky-piercing mountain, they immediately sent the news to the countries or martial artist factions behind them. All of a sudden, the world's 5 major countries, various martial artist forces, and hidden families heard the news and moved. They all sent out their experts and dispatched the fastest transport planes to the Great Xia Kingdom's Kunlun's Death Valley. Over here. With a goal in mind, Jiang Xi began to look for a suitable opportunity. He had to make sure that his attack would not only be foolproof, but he would also be able to retreat safely. The last time in ruin number 09, he almost didn't manage to escape after snatching food from the wolf's mouth. It was a huge lesson for him. If his life was in danger, he would rather give up than take the risk. The situation this time was a little different from when they fought for the dragon mark spiritual fruit in ruin number 09. First of all, there were no beasts here. The remaining 5 undead creatures were still being held back by Feng Xian and the others. If he acted fast enough, the possibility of being surrounded was very small. Secondly, his strength was different from before. With the strength of a second-tier A-class warrior, the only one who could threaten him was the white man, Sam. Even so, Jiang Xi still observed his surroundings with the most cautious attitude, thinking of a plan. First, the terrain. When he sneaked over from the peak with the traces of Lingwan Road and Wondrous Rock Mountain, he had a general impression of the mountaintop environment of the sky-piercing mountain. More than half of the sky-piercing mountain's mountaintop was occupied by this endless lake. Around the lake, there were many peaks of different heights. He needed to find a hidden place to enter under such conditions. Otherwise, it would be awkward if he was discovered before he even got close to the spiritual item. Other than the terrain, there was also the timing. He had to choose a time when he could enter and exit. He had to ensure that when he entered, Feng Xian and the others would not be able to stop him in time. If the timing was not right, when he appeared, Feng Xian and the others would definitely focus their firepower on him. He was not confident that he could take on the 4 of them alone. After hiding in the dark and carefully observing for a while, Jiang Xi quickly found a relatively good place to enter. The vegetable garden in the distance was oval-shaped. Its back was against the peaks of different heights, and its front was the rippling lake. If he took a detour from the back of the peaks, he would be able to reach the open space at the side of the vegetable garden. Then, he could enter from the side. Let's do it. Jiang Xi's figure flashed. Under the cover of the fog, he first retreated to the back of the peaks, then took a detour from the back. His footsteps were light and quick. His figure floated and arrived near the chosen location. If he took another step, he would cross a small peak in front of him and appear in front of the vegetable garden. The distance from here to the 1,000-year-old spiritual item he had chosen was about 3,000 meters. Standing here, he could see that Sam, who was the strongest, had already started to suppress the 2 long-tailed skeletons. Although the long-tailed skeletons had the strength of a second-tier A-class warrior, their ability to fight continuously was very weak. Once their bones were shattered, there was no way for them to recover. As the battle went on, Sam gradually gained the upper hand. Feng Xian's situation was still the best. He was completely suppressing the ape skeleton. It wouldn't take long for the battle to end. Zhong Su and Tashi were each dealing with an ape skeleton. Although they were slightly weaker, they were still able to take the initiative in the battle. In total, the 4 of them would be able to finish off all 5 undead creatures in half an hour at most. Wait for a good opportunity. Jiang Xi maintained his calm. With his speed, he would be able to reach the 1,000-year-old spiritual item with peaches in 1 second at most. Then, he would pick the peaches and leave. That would also count as 1 second. If there were any unexpected situations, he would add 1 more second. From start to finish, Jiang Xi only gave himself 3 seconds. Any more and it would be dangerous. It would be easy for him to fall into a situation where he would be surrounded and attacked by Feng Xian and the others. After about 15 minutes, the situation began to tilt. Feng Xian was about to end the battle, and Sam had the absolute advantage. Jiang Xi frowned slightly. This wasn't good. Once Feng Xian and the other three gained complete control of the situation, there would be no more chances. However, the four of them were too vigilant. Even in their battle state, they still diverted part of their attention to the 5 spiritual items. At this moment, the situation suddenly changed. For some reason, Sam suddenly fell into a passive state. He couldn't suppress the long-tailed skeletons that were transformed from the crypt flame dragons. The 2 long-tailed skeletons immediately went berserk. Their blade-like long tails whistled and swept in all directions. The battle between Feng Xian and the other 2 was affected because of this. Damn it, they cursed at the same time. They were very clear that this was Sam's intention. He wanted to use the undead creatures to finish them off and take the 5 spiritual items for himself. This son of a bitch. Chapter 134. Feng Xian, Zhong Su, and Tashi had been teammates in the wilderness in their early years and had a tacit understanding with each other. In the face of such a situation, they made similar moves and reduced the intensity of their attacks. The 3 ape skeletons also seemed to have intelligence. Taking advantage of the reduced pressure, they immediately converged with the 2 long-tailed skeletons and huddled together. Then, it was a chaotic battle. Fuck. Facing the sudden chaos, Sam also cursed. Conceited as he was, he did not realize that his purpose was too obvious. He did not hide it at all. In the blink of an eye, the situation turned into 4 people facing 5 undead creatures. However, the undead creatures were obviously united. They were not. Therefore, there was a loophole. In less than half a minute, the situation of 4 people facing the spirit item at the same time appeared. Chance. Jiang Xi's eyes lit up. Without any hesitation, he instantly activated the wind shadow step. The mysterious footwork made his whole body like the wind and shadow. In a flash, he arrived in front of the 1,000-year-old spirit item 3 kilometers away. Fuck me. Sam was the first to notice Jiang Xi. Regardless of the undead creature's attacks, he waved his sword and rushed toward Jiang Xi. Jiang Xi. Feng Xian was shocked and angry. He did not have time to think about why Jiang Xi was still alive. Anger and hatred drove him to slash at Jiang Xi. The remaining Zhong Su and Tashi did not have their strength. Facing the fierce attacks of the 5 undead creatures, they could not escape at all and could only bitterly hold on. It was expected that he would be discovered. Feng Xian and the others were 5 kilometers away from him. Therefore, Jiang Xi did not panic. It's mine. He plucked the attractive peach that exuded spiritual charm. It took less than half a second. There's still a chance. Jiang Xi turned his gaze to the 100-year-old spirit item 400 meters away. Coincidentally, the 100-year-old spirit item bore the dragon mark spirit fruit. It was mature and had 9 golden patterns on the surface. Another one. His figure flashed again. In just 0.01 seconds, he arrived in front of the 100-year-old spirit item. His unscrupulous actions made Feng Xian and the others even angrier. Stop! Feng Xian and Sam shouted in unison. Retreat! Jiang Xi simply ignored them. He plucked the dragon mark spirit fruit and turned to leave. At this point, he had finally picked the fruit for more than a second. This was still within his expectations. However, something unexpected happened. Sam, who was originally more than 1,000 meters away from him, suddenly increased his speed and caught up with him in the blink of an eye. The broad-bladed greatsword with a sharp sword aura was about to land on his body in the next moment. So fast! Jiang Xi felt a wave of mental pressure and immediately bit his lips. The pain woke him up. With a flip of his hand, his sword swept out horizontally. Clang! The long sword collided with the opponent's broadsword. A huge force burst forth in an instant. Under this force, Riverward's figure was somewhat out of control, flying out backward. Then, he used the momentum to increase his speed and dash down the mountain. What? Sam could not believe it. Although Jiang Xi seemed to be at a disadvantage, that was just a hasty strike. It actually blocked his all-out attack. Didn't that mean that Jiang Xi's strength was on par with his? Close to the first tier of A class? Don't even think about running. Seeing that Jiang Xi continued to run and had no intention of fighting, Sam reacted and quickly chased after him. Behind him, Feng Xian also chased after him with a face full of anger. Jiang Xi was very fast. After successfully reaching A class, his speed had improved significantly. In addition, he used the wind shadow steps at full strength. When he ran down the mountain, he only left behind a series of afterimages. In just a dozen seconds, he reached the mountainside of the sky-piercing mountain. Below him was the area with dense lightning. Sam chased after him closely. Encountering someone like Jiang Xi, whose strength was on par with his, but who did not want to fight him and only wanted to escape. There was nothing he could do when he saw Jiang Xi rush into the area where the lightning kept falling without looking back. He could only curse loudly. Earlier, when he came up the mountain, Sam had already experienced the power of the lightning. Although it could not hurt him, it still felt very uncomfortable. Therefore, he only cursed a few times and gave up the chase. He turned around and returned to the lake at the top of the mountain. After all, there were still 3 spirit fruits there. Compared to the 2 spirit fruits in Jiang Xi's hands, the spirit fruits at the top of the mountain were obviously easier to obtain. In just 2 seconds, Feng Xian also caught up. He just happened to see Sam return. "Sam, where is he?" Feng Xian asked anxiously. "He ran away." Sam snorted coldly. He did not stop and increased his speed. "I'm so angry." Feng Xian looked at the lightning at the bottom of the mountain and roared angrily. "You are not his match. Hurry up and help me deal with those skeletons." Sam's voice came from above. "Trash! Trash!" Feng Xian's expression was somewhat distorted. However, he did not dare to chase after Jiang Xi alone. He had also seen the scene of Jiang Xi and Sam exchanging blows in an instant. That's the strength of a first-tier A rank. How did he do it? It's only been an hour. Feng Xian found it hard to understand. "I'm not his match." Feng Xian's heart was filled with resentment and helplessness. In the end, he could only turn around and return to the top of the mountain. No matter what, he had to obtain a spirit fruit. That way, he would have a chance to break through to the spirit nurture stage. A glimmer of opportunity was still an opportunity. Soon, the 2 of them returned to the open space of the vegetable garden at the top of the mountain. At this time, Zhong Su and Tashi were still struggling under the siege of the 5 undead creatures. Among the 5 spirit fruits, the 2 that Jiang Xi had plucked had completely withered. Seeing this scene, Sam became even angrier. He rushed over without saying a word. He wanted to vent his anger on the undead creatures. He had already decided that he would take all the fruits of the remaining 3 spirit fruits. Feng Xian and the others would not be able to get a single one. However, he could not reveal this intention yet. He still needed Feng Xian and the others to help him deal with these undead creatures. In fact, he was somewhat envious of Jiang Xi. Because Jiang Xi was very fast, he did not need to fight with these undead creatures. He took advantage of the time when they were restraining the undead creatures to pluck the 2 spirit fruits. Although he was envious, he did not have Jiang Xi's speed and no one to help him restrain the undead creatures. It was very difficult for him to pass through the undead creatures' line of defense. He knew very well that Feng Xian and the other 2 would be lucky if they did not play any tricks. It was impossible to get them to help restrain the undead creatures. Only by dealing with the undead creatures guarding the spirit fruits could they pluck the spirit fruits. Feng Xian was 2 steps slower. After returning, he joined the battle with the undead creatures again. He looked at Zhong Su and Tashi expressionlessly. The 3 of them had a tacit understanding and nodded slightly. In the face of the 5 undead creatures, the 4 of them did not fully exert their strength. The battle that could have been finished in half an hour would now take at least an hour. Both sides had their own plans. They were all waiting for the final eruption. Chapter 135. On the other hand, Jiang Xi once again felt the magic of the Tongtian mountain. The lightning bolts that kept falling were all as thick as a thumb, but none of them fell on him. When he found that Feng Xian and Sam did not continue to pursue him, he easily found a nearby cave and hid inside. The cave was very dry. Surprisingly, there were stone tables and stone stools as if someone had lived here many years ago. Jiang Xi did not care about this. He sat down leisurely on the stone stool and took out the 2 spiritual fruits that he had just obtained. His throat moved. He had no choice. The spiritual essence of the peach and the dragon mark spiritual fruit was too tempting, making him have the urge to swallow them. To be safe, I'd better eat the dragon mark spiritual fruit first. This peach is the fruit of a 1,000-year-old spiritual fruit. With the strength of an A-class martial artist's body, if he can't bear it and explodes, there will be no way to explain. Jiang Xi shook his head and put away the peach. Although there was a satellite signal here, he could log into the Shen Tian forum. But out of caution, he did not go to the forum to inquire about the origin of the peach. He still understood the principle of treasuring a jade ring becomes a crime. A 1,000-year-old spiritual fruit was so rare that if he inquired about it in the forum, the higher-ups of Genten Budokan would definitely know. Things like website backend existed hundreds of years ago. Jiang Xi looked at the dragon mark spiritual fruit in his hand. On the surface of a mature dragon mark spiritual fruit, there would be 9 irregular golden patterns. He thought to himself, according to Feng Xian and the others, the realm above A-class should be the spirit gathering stage. Last time, the dragon mark spiritual fruit with only 1 golden pattern greatly improved my strength. This time, it's a fully mature dragon mark spiritual fruit. Can it help me reach the spirit gathering stage directly? Jiang Xi's heart palpitated. He took a few deep breaths and calmed down before eating the dragon mark spiritual fruit. The last time he ate the unripe dragon mark spiritual fruit, he swallowed it in one mouthful in an emergency. He did not taste it at all. This time, he had the process of savoring it carefully. It was really crispy and delicious. After eating it, Jiang Xi wiped his mouth, wishing for more. I still want more. However, before he could savor the taste, the dragon mark spirit fruit in his stomach turned into an extremely rich spiritual qi in the span of a breath. It contained a few times more spirit qi than the A-grade Fey potions. His body began to expand again. However, the situation was still acceptable. Only his muscles and blood vessels showed signs of rupturing. His bones and whatnot had withstood the energy impact this time. The body of an A-class martial artist is indeed powerful. This thought flashed through Jiang Xi's mind. He then focused and used the EXP panel to level up. Level increased by 300 EXP. After chanting in his heart, the spiritual energy in his body rapidly decreased, and his body also showed a small increase in strength. After reaching a class, the improvement process was much slower. It took about 3 seconds each time. Level increased by 300 EXP. Level increased by 300 EXP. It increased every 3 seconds, and when it reached the 6th time, Jiang Xi frowned. After increasing his level by 300 EXP, the decrease in spiritual energy in his body was not as obvious as the previous 5 times. Soon, when the improvement process was over, Jiang Xi went through the 7th improvement. Just as he had predicted, the improvement failed. He opened the EXP panel and checked. Level, Pulse Opening Level A, 25900-25900, Cultivation Technique, 9 Elements Heart Technique Martial Technique 9 Elements Sword Technique, Combined 300-0030000, Wind Shadow Step, Combined 400-0040000, Force Exertion, 10 Experience Points, 119149. I didn't break through. Jiang Xi shook his head gently. The improvement just now had consumed more than half of his spiritual energy. The remaining spiritual energy in his body was not enough to break through the bottleneck from A-class to spirit nurture. It's a pity that I wasted less than half of the Dragon Mark Spirit Fruit. Because the 9-element sword technique and wind shadow step, these two advanced martial techniques were also in a bottleneck state. However, he currently had no way to break through the bottleneck. It was not like he could use a large amount of spiritual energy to forcefully break through the bottleneck. Therefore, he could only let the remaining spiritual energy dissipate. Of course, he could also turn this spiritual energy into EXP through cultivation. However, this process would take a long time, and it was obviously not the time now. There were still 3 spiritual items on the mountain peak. Now that his strength had increased again, he could openly compete for them. He might not have the combat power of A-class, but he could definitely suppress Sam. Although I didn't succeed in breaking through, with my current state, I should not be far away from A-class. The martial artists standing at the first step of the A-class were all in the spirit nurturing stage. Jiang Xi's eyes were in high spirits. He stood up and gently clenched his fist. Bang bang, the power that erupted from his body shook the air. It was very powerful. Who was chasing me just now? Now I'm here. Jiang Xi left the cave and gently stepped on the ground. With a boom, his figure appeared 5,000 meters away. His speed had greatly increased. He ran toward the peak of Tongtian Mountain. The process of his improvement did not take long. It was less than 3 minutes. The battle above was definitely not over yet. At the entrance of Jade Lake's secret realm, Kunlun Mountain's Death Valley. The invisible barrier was like an inverted bowl, completely enveloping the 105-kilometer-long and 33-kilometer-wide Death Valley. Endless clouds and mist were churning within the barrier. There were 3 invisible transport planes that landed at different locations around Death Valley at almost the same time. 1 to 2 people came down from each plane with weapons. They directly passed through the barrier of Death Valley and entered Jasper Lake's secret realm. 2 of the martial artists that came down from the plains did not look like they were from Daxia country. However, each of them had a very powerful aura. They were at least A-class. At the same time, on the other side of Death Valley, on the cliff of a snowy mountain, Xian Tian and White Cloud were still standing there, motionless. They seemed to be waiting for something. White Cloud reminded, "Master, there are more than 10 strong martial artists here." He was doing statistics. Xian Tian smiled and said, "No rush. There are still a few forces that have not arrived yet. We have to wait for them." "But, Master, according to your plan, we only need to attract a dozen people." "Oh? Did I say that?" "Ha, I think I did say that. But it's more fun with more people. We can deal with them once and for all. It'll save us the trouble of making a move next time." Alright. Pay attention. When the people from the 5 major countries and the main martial artist forces have arrived, we'll go in. White Cloud heard this and finally heaved a sigh of relief. He already knew what his master was planning. However, he felt that the current development was not right. "Don't go overboard, Master." In the next half an hour, more and more people were sent to Death Valley. They were all powerful martial artists. After these people entered Jasper Lake's secret realm through Death Valley, they all went straight to Tongtian Mountain. Chapter 136. After Jiang Xi quietly returned to the mountaintop, he did not reveal any traces. Once again, he hid at the peak beside the vegetable garden. Even if he had become stronger, he could not act recklessly. If he could avoid fighting, he would try his best not to. This was Jiang Xi's style of doing things. Hence, he continued to look for the right opportunity. Observing from here, it could be seen that after the 5 undead creatures joined forces, they became even more difficult to deal with. Feng Xian and Sam were both scheming against each other. In a situation where they were not of one mind, it was almost impossible to quickly deal with the 5 undead creatures. Jiang Xi was not in a hurry. A qualified fisherman was more patient than an osprey. My position is about 6,000 meters away from the remaining 1,000-year-old spiritual item. With my current speed, I only need a little more than a second to reach it. His first target this time was the 1,000-year-old spiritual item that bore fruits similar to the dragon fruit. Just like that, he waited for about 20 minutes. Once again, he saw an excellent opportunity. Without hesitation, he immediately rushed over. However, before he could get close to the 1,000-year-old spiritual item with the dragon fruit, he heard Feng Xian and Sam angrily shout in unison, "We've been waiting for you for a long time." In an instant, the four people who were fighting against the undead creatures attacked Jiang Xi together as if they had agreed beforehand, forming an encirclement. They might have disagreements regarding the distribution of spiritual items, but their attitude towards Jiang Xi was the same. After the two Feis were snatched away by riverward, they were already on guard. It was impossible for them to fall in the same place twice. Blade shadows, sword shadows, and staff shadows bombarded Jiang Xi together. This was especially true for Sam and Feng Xian. Both of them were second-tier A-rank powerhouses, and their attacks were frightening. Good timing. However, Jiang Xi was not afraid at all. Being safe and low-key was fundamental. However, if he really wanted to make a move, he was not afraid at all. Whoosh! The killing shadow sword was unsheathed, and a cold light flashed. At the same time, Jiang Xi's footsteps were light. His body was like the wind, and with a slight turn, he arrived in front of Tashi, who was the weakest. His long sword was suffused with a terrifying sword light, and with a buzzing sound, he slashed out in an instant. 9 Elemental Swordplay. It was a quick sword enhanced by the extreme speed movement technique. It was even more powerful. In just 0.1 seconds, he had swung his sword nearly 100 times. Clang! Clang! Tashi swung his blade with all his might, but he was only a third-tier A-class warrior. His speed was far from Jiang Xi's. After blocking the first 10 or so strikes, he could no longer hold on. He could only barely hold his saber horizontally in front of his chest. Bang bang bang, the remaining dozens of swords almost instantly landed on his body. He was sent flying and exploded in the air. When he landed on the ground, he was already a pile of minced meat. This scene stunned Feng Xian and Zhong Su. Then, Feng Xian roared, "Jiang Xi, you deserve to die." A saber slashed towards Jiang Xi. Die die die. Zhong Su also went crazy. He swung the stick, the sky full of stick shadows, and smashed toward Jiang Xi. The two of them were furious and sorrowful. They had a deep friendship with Tashi, a friendship that had gone through life and death. As early as 30 years ago, the name of the Iron Triangle of the Jianghai Prefecture had been well known in the martial arts world. Now, Tashi was dead. Facing the madness of the two, Jiang Xi was very calm and collected. The friend of an enemy was also an enemy. He did not show any mercy. If he had to kill, he would kill. "I'll kill the two of them together." Jiang Xi's eyes flashed with a cold light. "Just nice, I'll get rid of the threat once and for all." The killer shadow sword and his body merged perfectly. With his body leading the sword, the speed of the sword became faster and faster with the help of the wind shadow step. Clang! Clang! In almost an instant, 2 consecutive strikes repelled Feng Xian and Zhong Su's attacks. Then, Jiang Xi followed up with another attack, his long sword stabbing forward once again, but at this moment, a piercing chill attacked from the side behind him. It was Sam's sudden sneak attack, his broad greatsword slashing towards Jiang Xi. Jiang Xi's face turned cold, and he shouted, "You're courting death." Without even looking, he swept his sword horizontally. Boom! When the long sword collided with the greatsword, a huge force exploded, and an invisible shockwave shook the surrounding fog. The situation of the battle changed again. Feng Xian, Zhong Su, and Sam had temporarily joined forces. This young man from the Xia kingdom is too sinister. He has been hiding his strength all this time. Sam's face was tense. His reason for attacking was simple: Jiang Xi was too strong. He realized that although his attack power was similar to Jiang Xi's, both of them were close to the first tier of A-class. However, in terms of speed, he was much slower than Jiang Xi. If he allowed Jiang Xi to kill Feng Xian and Zhong Su, he would be the only one left. He had no confidence in dealing with Jiang Xi. Then come at me together. Jiang Xi made a classic beckoning gesture. Arrogant. The three of them were furious and attacked at the same time. Jiang Xi laughed loudly, his feet moving in a mysterious footwork. His body was extremely fast and elegant, like the wind and shadow, welcoming their attacks. His long sword quickly blocked the attacks, then he attacked with a fast sword. The 9-elemental sword technique and the wind shadow step were perfectly combined. In one word, fast. In addition, his current realm was at the bottleneck of A-class. His strength was outstanding, and combined with his tenfold strength, the power of each sword was frightening. As long as Feng Xian and the other two were hit by his sword, no matter who it was, even if they did not die, they would be half-crippled. In a situation where his opponents were somewhat afraid, Jiang Xi's attacks were even more like a fish in water. The combined attacks of these three people were like sparring partners for him, allowing him to quickly adapt to his new strength and further increase his combat power. From the time Jiang Xi attacked until now, only 3 seconds had passed. On the other side, after the 5 undead creatures lost their target, they were confused at first. Then, they roared and pounced toward Jiang Xi and the others they attacked indiscriminately. Jiang Xi was still fine. With the flexibility brought by the wind shadow steps, he was able to handle the attacks with ease. On the other hand, Feng Xian and Zhong Su were having a hard time. Not only did they have to deal with Jiang Xi, but they also had to deal with the attacks of the undead creatures. Especially the long-tailed skeletons, whose 2 10-meter-long tails were like giant blades. They swept across the open space and wreaked havoc, restricting their movements. If their movement techniques were not good, they would be easily injured. In this open space that resembled a vegetable garden, the commotion became louder and louder. Some of the surrounding boulders and peaks exploded due to the aftermath of the battle. Jiang Xi felt more and more that while dodging the attacks of the undead creatures, he was also completely suppressing Feng Xian and the others. His sword was like lightning, extremely fast. His body was like a phantom, as elegant as the wind. This feeling was wonderful. How did he become stronger again? How could it be? How could it be? After experiencing a bout of anger, Feng Xian's mind was in a mess. In just a little over an hour, he had witnessed the change in Jiang Xi's strength. In the beginning, under his pursuit, Jiang Xi could only flee pathetically. Now, even if they worked together, they were still not Jiang Xi's match. A feeling of despair grew in his heart. Was this what a genius was like? What should we do? Run. We must run. Before we reach the spirit-nurturing stage, we must hide from him. Feng Xian quickly made a decision. He gave Zhong Su a look. Like them, Sam was also thinking about retreating. Sam also knew that under such circumstances, it was impossible to get a big harvest. However, he had more thoughts. He wanted to make sure that he would not return empty-handed from this trip to the Jade Lake secret realm. Chapter 137. Roar! 2 long-tailed skeletons swept their blade-like tails at Jiang Xi in a crisscross manner. Jiang Xi turned his body and easily dodged the attack. With the strength of the A-class bottleneck, coupled with the wind shadow step and 9-elemental sword art, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was the #1 A-class martial artist. Suddenly, Jiang Xi thrust his sword at an ape skeleton that was pouncing at him. The white man, Sam, retreated without any warning. He turned around and rushed towards the remaining 1,000-year-old spiritual item. Did you ask me for permission? Jiang Xi was amused. This blatant attempt to fish in troubled waters was simply an insult to his intelligence. Immediately after, he changed his target to Sam. He slowed down the frequency of his attacks on Feng Xian and Zhong Su and rapidly thrust his sword at Sam. At the same time, Sam's action of plucking the 1,000-year-old spiritual item's fruit angered the 5 undead creatures guarding the spiritual item. They also surrounded and attacked. Fuck. Sam's face changed. He accelerated towards the 1,000-year-old spiritual item and crossed the distance of 2 to 3 kilometers in a single step. Get lost. Do you think you can touch the things of my great Xia kingdom? Jiang Xi snorted and swung his sword, thrusting it forward with a cold gleam. His speed was faster than Sam's and instantly caught up. It's too late. Sam was unwilling to give up. When he saw the nearest 100-year-old spiritual item, he rushed over with lightning speed. Pucci. He paid the price for his greed. His shoulder was pierced by Jiang Xi. Moreover, it was only 2 to 3 centimeters away from his neck. It was very dangerous. Damn it. What a loss. Sam was infuriated and fled for his life. In the end, he didn't even get a single 100-year-old spiritual item. Consider yourself lucky. Jiang Xi didn't give chase. Sam was determined to escape. Even if he could stop him, it would take some effort. When he turned around, Jiang Xi's expression didn't look good either. Feng Xian and Zhong Su actually took the opportunity to escape. They knew their limits and didn't covet the spiritual item, of course. He didn't dare to do so. He was afraid that he would be hunted down by Jiang Xi if he picked the Fei. These two. Where's the bravery they had earlier? Jiang Xi was a little speechless. So what if she ran away? He wasn't too worried. His current strength was different from before. He had no need to fear Feng Xian at all. If Feng Xian dared to come again, he could probably slap him to death. Jiang Xi's footsteps were light as he was about to pluck the remaining 3 spiritual items. 5 undead creatures rushed over to stop him. Get out of my way. Riverward bellowed as his longsword struck a long-tailed skeleton. Crack crack crack, in the blink of an eye, more than 10 sparkling white bones were cut off. The 5 undead creatures became even crazier. Jiang Xi pushed his wind shadow steps to the limit, wanting to get rid of them. A strange scene appeared. The 5 undead creatures seemed to have encountered something terrible. They actually growled at Jiang Xi and fled back into the depths of the fog, disappearing without a trace. Jiang Xi's head was full of question marks. Since he couldn't figure it out, he didn't want to think about it. He had to get the fruits of the 3 spiritual items first. Without any disturbance, Jiang Xi walked over and picked the fruits with ease. 1,000-year-old spiritual item fruit and 200-year-old spiritual item fruits were all in his hands. Whoosh! Suddenly, a gust of wind blew, and there was a feeling of space being compressed. A huge palm print that seemed to be condensed from spiritual energy slammed directly at Jiang Xi from afar. What? Jiang Xi was aghast. He didn't even think before running away. Boom boom boom. Almost instantly, the huge palm print landed on the place where he was just standing. The mountain rocks split open, and a huge pit with a radius of 10 meters appeared there. Jiang Xi only had time to glance at it. His face was full of horror. What kind of attack was this? He had never seen anyone use spiritual energy to attack someone directly. It was so powerful. If he had reacted a little slower, he would have been smashed into a pile of mud. Jiang Xi rushed into the thick fog without looking back. He ran along the lakeside and wanted to go down the mountain from another direction. At this moment, a bearded white man suddenly appeared in the open space. He saw the 5 withered spiritual items. Behind him, there was another person who was much slower than him. It was Sam, who had just been stabbed by Jiang Xi's sword. Lord William. Sam held his left shoulder and bowed. His attitude was very humble. He had already used the A-class spiritual item medicine and the injury on his left shoulder had stopped. Sam, what happened? William asked in a muffled voice. That kid from the Great Xia Kingdom took the 5 spiritual items. Sam quickly replied. Hide well first. I will chase after him. Before his voice faded, William's figure had already disappeared into the thick fog. Sam's eyes flickered and he sneered. He already had a premonition of Jiang Xi's fate. Because the one who made the move was Lord William. In the entire martial arts world of the Dark Shadow Kingdom, there was no one who did not know Lord William's name. Lord William was the new hero of the Dark Shadow Kingdom. He was a true first-tier powerhouse who had surpassed A-class. Sam was a director of the Liberal Alliance and was also a martial artist of the Dark Shadow Kingdom. He had trained with William for a period of time and had a good relationship with him. This time, William was able to rush over so quickly because of his timely notification. Although he was still a step late and Jiang Xi had taken the spiritual items, Sam believed that with Lord William's strength, killing Jiang Xi was just a matter of waving his hand. After that, he quickly left the place and hid by the lakeside. According to Lord William, this place was going to be chaotic. Chaos, the more chaotic the better. It would be best if the foundation of the Great Xia Kingdom and Genten Budokan is destroyed. Sam was full of excitement. Because there were rumors that the few martial arts powerhouses of the Great Xia Kingdom started to rise after coming out of the Jade Lake's secret realm. Could it be the spirit nurture stage? Although he had escaped far away, Jiang Xi was still shocked. That attack just now was too terrifying. Whoosh whoosh, gusts of strong wind swept up in the fog behind him. It was caused by someone running at extreme speed. He's catching up. Jiang Xi's face was solemn. A foreigner? Is he also a director of the Liberal Alliance? He saw the appearance of the person clearly. It was a strong white man with a big beard. Fortunately, his speed is only a little faster than mine. As long as I can return to the lower half of the Tongtian mountain, I can use the lightning area there to escape the pursuit. Jiang Xi did not panic. He calmly ran along the lakeside and prepared to go down the mountain from the other side. On the contrary, William was shocked. He realized that Jiang Xi was not much slower than him. A person who had not reached the spirit nurture stage actually showed a speed comparable to the spirit nurture stage. He must be a young genius of the Great Xia Kingdom. I must get rid of him. He was determined to kill him. The two of them ran along the lakeside, chasing each other. Suddenly, Jiang Xi's eyes widened. His breathing became hurried, and the rhythm of his footsteps became a little messy. His speed dropped sharply. He saw a green lotus leaf on the surface of the lake in front of him. More than 10 mature lotus heads swayed in the wind against the backdrop of the lotus leaf. Even from far away, he could feel the spiritual aura emitted by the lotus heads. These lotus heads were all thousand-year-old spiritual items. Chapter 138. There were so many thousand-year-old spiritual items. If the outside world knew about this, it would definitely make the strong people in the world go crazy. How is this possible? What are the higher-ups of Genten Budokan doing? Why didn't they send someone to guard this place? Jiang Xi couldn't understand. Boom! Another huge spiritual chi palm print condensed in the air and slapped towards him. The white man had caught up. Damn it! The spiritual items were important, but they weren't as important as his life. Jiang Xi decisively ran forward again. Boom boom boom. The palm print landed behind Jiang Xi, but Jiang Xi left quickly. When William arrived, he suddenly stopped. He had also noticed the lotus pods on the lotus leaves. Oh my God! William exclaimed. He stopped chasing. There were more than 10,000-year-old spiritual items here. Why would he chase after Jiang Xi? Not chasing. Jiang Xi sensed that the movement behind him had disappeared. He realized that the bearded white man must have been attracted by the lotus pods. He was temporarily safe. However, Jiang Xi's mood wasn't much better. His face was tense. 100-year-old spiritual item could nurture an ordinary A-class warrior. Those lotus pods were all 1,000-year-old spiritual items. How many strong people could they nurture? This was a priceless cultivation resource. It could even affect the rise and fall of a country. The more strong people there were, the more resources there would be in this era. Although the Jade Lake's secret realm is another space, it is still the territory of the Xia kingdom. Do foreign warriors want to seize the resources here? Although he couldn't understand why the higher-ups of Genten Budokan didn't care about these spiritual items, Jiang Xi still decided to call for help. When Feng Xian was looking for help to fight for the 5 spiritual items, Jiang Xi already had this plan. However, he didn't expect so many accidents to happen. He used the A-class spiritual item medicine and the 100-year-old spiritual item dragon mark fruit. With the help of the experience panel, his strength increased twice in a short time. In the end, he suppressed Feng Xian, Sam, and the others and obtained the 5 phase on his own. Therefore, there was no need to inform the higher-ups of Genten Budokan, but now that things had developed to this point, there were more than a dozen 1,000-year-old spiritual items. Even a master of spirit nurturing stage has appeared. He had to call the higher-ups of Genten Budokan over. Otherwise, he would not be able to control the situation alone. Who should I inform? Jiang Xi found that the only Genten Budokan higher-ups he could contact now were Tang He, one of the 4 elders, and the black-robed woman who supervised the survival training. Contact both of them. He didn't have the black-robed woman's specific contact information. The only way was to send an emergency rescue signal and let the black-robed woman come here. However, if he used emergency rescue, it meant that he had failed in this survival training. Jiang Xi shook his head. If he failed, then so be it. Survival training was no longer important to him. Then, he used his tactical communications watch to call Tang He. Jiang Xi. Aren't you in the survival training? On the other side of the phone, Tang He was a little surprised. Elder Tang, there's an emergency. Do you know the Tongtian mountain in the Jade Lake's secret realm? It's a huge mountain covered by lightning and fog. Now, there are foreign martial artists snatching the 1,000-year-old spiritual items here. Jiang Xi spoke very quickly. What? Lightning? Fog? 1,000-year-old spiritual items. Impossible. Jiang Xi, are you sure you're talking about the Tongtian mountain? Tang He was very surprised. Yes. There's a stone tablet at the foot of the mountain. There's also a big lake at the top of the mountain. There are more than a dozen 1,000-year-old spiritual items growing in it. Okay, I got it. The call ended. Jiang Xi was a little puzzled. Listening to Tang He's words, was the situation of the Tongtian mountain not like this before? If that's the case, then it makes sense. Otherwise, it would be strange if no one guarded such a precious place. The higher-ups of Genten Budokan wouldn't be so stupid to let others snatch these spiritual items. Outside the Jade Lake's secret realm, at the edge of the Death Valley. In just half an hour, nearly 20 martial artists came and passed through the Death Valley and entered the Jade Lake's secret realm. These people were at least A-class in strength. White Cloud asked in an uncertain tone, Master, is it still not enough? There are already more than 30 people in total. 5 of them are at the spirit nurturing stage. Basically, all the experts in the world's martial arts world have come. Xian Tian didn't laugh this time. He pondered for a while, frowned and muttered to himself, something doesn't feel right. How can the Jade Lake's secret realm attract so many people? He also smelled a trace of surprise in the air. It seemed that the development of things was not what he expected. White Cloud thought that it was indeed the case. Master had gone overboard. Ask He Tu if anything happened inside, Xian Tian said in a deep voice. White Cloud was about to contact He Tu to ask about the situation when his tactical communications watch rang. Tang He's call. Answer it. When the call was connected, Tang He quickly reported the situation. White Cloud looked serious and said to Xian Tian, Master, something unexpected happened. Master, an accident indeed happened. Riverward was pursued by Feng Xian and entered the Heavenspan mountain. According to his description, the environment of the Tongtian mountain has changed greatly. It has been covered by clouds and lightning. More than 10,000-year-old spiritual plants have suddenly grown in the lake at the top of the mountain. Let He Tu rush there first. Xian Tian also became serious. White Cloud immediately contacted and nodded. Junior sister Hei too has received Jiang Xi's distress signal and is rushing there. Let's go. Xian Tian leaped down from the cliff of the snowy mountain and crossed more than 10 kilometers in the air. He directly fell into the barrier of the Death Valley and entered the Jade Lake's secret realm. White Cloud did the same and followed Xian Tian. In fact, other than Jiang Xi, there were also other Genten Budokan students who discovered the Tongtian mountain. Like everyone else, the lightning area at the bottom of the Tongtian mountain made them fearful and did not dare to climb the mountain. As for why they did not inform the higher-ups of the dojo, the reason was simple. Firstly, they did not have the contact information of the higher-ups. Secondly, they subconsciously thought that the mythical scene of the Tongtian mountain was like this. After all, this was the Jade Lake's secret realm. Thirdly, they did not reach the top of the Tongtian mountain and did not know that there were so many spiritual plants there. Therefore, the final result was that other than Jiang Xi, no one thought of reporting the situation. Therefore, the higher-ups of Genten Budokan only knew about the situation now. On the other side, after Jiang Xi reported the situation, he hid in a secluded spot by the lake and quietly observed. Out of caution, he did not approach the area with the lotus heads. His intuition told him that the lake was not safe. However, after reaching the A-class bottleneck, his senses had been greatly enhanced. With his current eyesight, he could roughly see the situation over there even if he was almost 10,000 meters away. He could see that the white man was also very cautious and did not rashly pick those lotus heads. Clearly, he had also realized that this vast lake might be hiding dangers. The white man observed the surroundings for a while and used the simplest method to test the waters, throwing a stone. Splash! 1,000-kilogram rock smashed into the water near the lotus, splashing a large amount of water. The water rippled for a while and returned to calm after a while. It seemed safe and there was nothing hidden in the water. Chapter 139. After throwing a few more big stones and repeatedly confirming that there was no danger, the white brawny man was relieved to pick the lotus, but before he could get close to the lake, suddenly, there were 4 people with powerful momentum, whistling from a distance. Spirit Yun stage. Stop. William, stop. 4 Spirit Yun stage martial artists shouted in different languages. They came from different countries. One of them was a martial artist from the Xia Empire, and the other 3 were foreign martial artists. When William saw so many strong martial artists of the same realm, his face suddenly changed, and his speed increased. He wanted to pick up all the lotus as soon as possible. Boom boom boom. The 4 later Spirit Yun stage martial artists each condensed their spirit energy, and powerful attacks directly blasted at William from a distance. In desperation, William could only backhand. Boom! The huge energy collided and exploded over the lake, setting off a strong shock wave. The wind and clouds surged, and the thick fog on the lake dissipated. That is. In the distance, Jiang Xi, who was hiding in the dark, widened his eyes and was shocked. He saw that in the center of the lake where the fog dissipated, there were large lotus leaves. Hundreds of lotus plants exuding spiritual charm, swaying in the wind under the lotus leaves. Looking at their spiritual charm, these lotus plants were stronger than the dozens of lotus plants by the lake. They were at least a millennium spiritual object. Jade Lake's secret realm. Is this lake really the Jade Lake? Otherwise, there was no way to explain the magic of this lake. It actually grew so many millennium-old spiritual objects. 100-year-old spiritual object could cultivate an ordinary A-level martial artist. How many of these could be cultivated? Thinking of this, Jiang Xi smiled bitterly. Because the strong martial artists of Genten Budokan had not arrived yet. Now, only one of the 5 Spirit Yun stage martial artists was a martial artist from the Xia Empire. If this goes on, he can only watch these spiritual objects being plundered by these foreign martial artists. In the distance, William and the other 4 Spirit Yun stage martial artists were all excited. Tempted. They knew the value of the Millennium spiritual objects better than Jiang Xi. The 100-year-old spiritual objects were not very helpful for the cultivation of Spirit Yun stage martial artists. Only the Millennium spiritual objects were truly suitable for the cultivation of Spirit Yun stage. Boom! The war broke out in an instant, and the 5 spirit gathering stage martial artists immediately fought. They all had their own forces and interests, and none of them were willing to submit to the other. In the world of martial arts, the strong were revered. Whoever won in the end, these spiritual items would belong to them. For a moment, because they were continuously condensing spiritual energy, the surrounding spiritual energy became violent, strong winds blew, and sand and stones flew. That martial artist from the Great Xia Empire was the first to be targeted and suffered the most attacks. Not only because he came from the Xia Empire, but also because his strength was the strongest among the 5 Spirit Yun stage cultivators. He wielded a long black alloy staff. The shadow of the staff was like a dragon. Facing the attacks of 4 powerhouses of the same level, he barely managed to defend himself. However, if they continued to defend, they would definitely lose. If this continued, they would definitely lose. This made Jiang Xi secretly anxious, and he resisted the urge to make a move. His strength was close to the first stage of the spirit nurturing stage, but it was only close. Under the pursuit of the strong white man, William, Jiang Xi confirmed that his speed was not worse than those of the spirit nurturing stage. But in terms of attack, it was much weaker. If he went up now, it would be useless. Soon, the situation developed in a bad direction, and the martial artist from the Great Xia Empire who used the staff gradually fell into a decline. Jiang Xi sent the emergency rescue signal again, urging the black-robed woman to come as soon as possible. Then he contacted Tang He again. Tang He seemed to be waiting for Jiang Xi's phone call, and he picked it up immediately. He asked about the current situation. After Jiang Xi finished briefly and quickly, Tang He said, "Our people are already on the way, and they will arrive in 10 minutes at most. I will now send you a list of world-renowned powerhouses. Pay attention to it. Information of well-known powerhouses." When Jiang Xi heard this, he was overjoyed. He didn't have to search blindly when he was chased by the strong white man. He only knew the other party's name, but he didn't know his information. He didn't know any of the 4 later Spirit Yun stage cultivators. After ending the communication, Jiang Xi received a document and opened it. After a rough glance, the powerhouses recorded in this document were more than 300 people. The weakest of them was A-class 3rd tier. He also saw the information of Feng Xian, Zhong Su, and Ta Shi. The information was very detailed, directly pointing out that the 3 of them were martial artists from the Liberal Alliance, and Feng Xian was one of the directors of the Liberal Alliance. Jiang Xi searched this document and quickly found the information of 5 Spirit Yun stage cultivators in the distance. Lu Rong, founder of the Great Xia Empire's Longxiang Martial Arts School, mid-stage Spirit Yun stage; Sharuk, High Priest of the Peacock Country's Brahmanism, mid-stage Spirit Yun stage; Johansson, Archbishop of the Sacred Alliance, mid-stage Spirit Yun stage; William, leader of the Shadow National Shadow Organization, early-stage Spirit Yun stage; Ivan, leader of the Alpha Star Shell Organization, early-stage Spirit Yun stage. Sure enough, they are all Spirit Yun stage. Jiang Xi let out a long sigh. The pressure was great. After his strength had improved greatly, his confidence had increased greatly. Now, seeing this, he understood that he was still far from it. He turned his gaze to the battle in the distance. The 3 major martial arts dojos in the Xia Kingdom, Zhenten Budokan, Tsukishin Budokan, and Longxiang Martial Arts Dojo, were the 3 strongest martial arts forces among the people. The first 2 were created by the world's strongest, Xian Tian, and the second strongest, Li Baibai. The founder of Longxiang Martial Arts Dojo was Lu Rong, who was fighting 1 against 4 in the distance. Lu Rong was indeed the founder of Longxiang Martial Arts Dojo. His strength was very strong. He had a square face and a determined expression. It could be seen that this person's character was very tough. Facing the siege of 4 Spirit Yun stage cultivators, even if he was in a disadvantageous position, he did not back down. The black alloy staff danced wildly like a dragon. The battle was extremely fierce. Whoosh, the wind whistled at this time, a black shadow flew from the bottom of the mountain. She's here. Jiang Si's eyes lit up. It was the black-robed woman. He also saw the black-robed woman's information in the information just now. Hei Tu, one of the two bodyguards of the Genten Budokan's dojo master, Xian Tian, early-stage spirit Yun stage. The 5 people who were fighting stopped one after another. Lu Rong flashed and came in front of Hei Tu's day. Hei Tu, your Genten Budokan is too careless. Lu Rong frowned, his breath was a little unstable. There was blood at the corner of his mouth. He was injured in the battle just now. Master arranged it. I didn't expect such an accident to happen. Hei Tu's voice was cold and helpless. Then she took a step forward and shouted to the 4 foreign martial artists, "This place belongs to my Xia kingdom. Please leave immediately." The 4 people looked at each other. One of them smiled in broken Mandarin and said, "According to your Xia kingdom's ancient saying, treasures belong to those who are fated. These spiritual objects were discovered by us first. Naturally, they are fated to be with us." The person who spoke was the Peacock country's strongest, Shaluk. Among the martial artists present, except for Lu Rong, he was the strongest. Chapter 140. Then there's nothing to talk about. Let's fight. Hei Tu pointed his blade at the 4 of them. She was petite, but her aura was not weak at all. Fight. Lu Rong waved his staff, indicating his attitude. The 2 of them were going to fight the 4 foreign spirit nurture martial artists together. This old man will join in as well. Just as the battle was about to begin, another person rushed over. The figure stood still. Everyone realized that it was a plain-looking old man. His whole body was emitting a powerful aura, and he was also at the mid-stage of spirit nurture. "Elder Huang, why are you here?" Hei Tu and Lu Rong were surprised. Haha, how can this old man be left out of defending against foreign enemies? Huang Kun laughed loudly. Hei Tu and Lu Rong were in awe. The old man in front of them was much older than them. Long before the Spirit Qi revival, he was already an iron-blooded general of the Xia kingdom's military. During the first Spirit Qi revival, he fell behind on the path of martial arts due to his age and lack of qi and blood. However, he did not give up. In the battles against monsters and foreign enemies, he forced his way through and finally stepped onto the peak of martial arts. Now, although he had retired for many years, he had always been the stabilizing force of the Xia kingdom. The 4 foreign martial artists' faces changed when they saw Huang Kun. Obviously, they also knew of the old man's reputation. Go! The Peacock country's expert, Shaluk, roared as he formed a huge fist and blasted it out. They had to make the first move to gain the upper hand. Among the 4 foreign martial artists, 2 were at the mid-stage of spirit nurture and 2 were at the early stage of spirit nurture. On the Xia kingdom's side, only Huang Kun and Lu Rong were at the mid-stage of spirit nurture. However, the 3 of them attacked crazily without caring about their lives. They were not at a disadvantage against the 4 foreign martial artists. The Xia martial artists in the martial arts world were famous for being able to fight and having guts. Shaluk, Johansson, and the others were shocked and angry, but there was nothing they could do. However, it was impossible for them to give up on the hundreds of thousand-year-old lotus seed heads in the lake. Because of this, the thousand-year-old spiritual item itself was a priceless treasure. And this lotus seed head was extremely special. There were usually more than 10 lotus seeds in a single lotus seed head. The effect of 1 lotus seed was definitely comparable to a 100-year-old spiritual item. Based on this calculation, the value of these lotus seed heads was even higher. It could even affect the fate of a nation. After the Spirit Qi revival, the Great Xia Kingdom relied on its ancient heritage to become the strongest country in the world. This made the other countries envious and jealous. They were all trying their best to catch up with the Great Xia Kingdom in terms of martial arts strength. Now, with so many spiritual items in front of them, no one was willing to give up. The martial Tao must be fought. Huge saber shadows, sword shadows, staff shadows, fist prints, and palm prints constantly collided and exploded. The berserk spiritual energy rolled up waves of up to 10 meters high on the surface of the lake. The situation was in a deadlock. Jiang Xi was hiding in the dark. Although he was shocked by the scene, he was relieved at the same time. If this stalemate continued, they would be able to wait for the experts of Genten Budokan to arrive. Unfortunately, this relief only lasted for a minute before the situation changed again. A series of messy footsteps rapidly approached from all directions. After a few breaths, the footsteps became clear. More than 30 figures gathered from all directions. So many. Jiang Xi's heart sank. Because he had just seen the comprehensive information of the experts, he still had a deep impression of them. Therefore, he could recognize the origins of these warriors at a glance. They were all A-class warriors, and their strength was at least at the third tier of A-class. These people would be important figures in any country. What was worrying was that more than 20 of these A-class warriors were foreigners. There were only a dozen A-class warriors from the Great Xia Kingdom. In addition, Jiang Xi noticed that Shu Qiqi had also come. Her aura was not inferior to those A-class third-tier warriors. It seemed that she had received some news. Other than her, no other Heaven-level training camp trainees had come among the Heaven-level training camp trainees, only the top 10 on the Heaven list had A-class combat strength. However, they were mostly at the 4th or 5th tier of A-class. In this situation, they can't help even if they come. Jiang Xi shook his head. After looking around carefully, he saw the figures of Feng Xian, Zhong Su, and Sam in an inconspicuous dark corner of the peak. They had come back, wanting to fish in troubled waters. These three still haven't given up. Jiang Xi sneered. At this time, the 4 foreign Spirit Yun stage warriors were fighting with Huang Kun and the others. Then, they shouted at the newly arrived A-class warriors in their own language, as if they were giving orders. "Grab them!" Someone shouted. Immediately, the foreign warriors rushed to the lakeside to pick the lotuses. The Spirit Yun stage warriors from both sides were entangled with each other, so they couldn't take care of this side. "Stop them!" Huang Kun shouted. Then, he clenched his fist and smashed it toward the Sacred Alliance warrior, Johansson. At the same time, more than a dozen A-class warriors from the Great Xia Kingdom also moved to stop the foreign warriors from rushing to the lakeside. The scene became even more chaotic. However, it was obvious that the Great Xia Kingdom was at a disadvantage here. They had lost half of their people. Jiang Xi frowned slightly. Then, he relaxed. It seemed that he couldn't keep a low profile anymore. As a citizen of the Great Xia Kingdom, his own interests were important. However, at this time, the interests of the country were more important. Shu Qiqi only knew that something big had happened when she received news from her family. Under the request of her family elders, she came to investigate the situation and wait for an opportunity to act. If possible, she had to protect the interests of the Great Xia Kingdom. Among the dozens of A-class warriors from the Great Xia Kingdom, she wasn't the strongest, but she wasn't the weakest either. However, because of her young face, some of the foreign warriors started to focus their attacks on her. Her situation had become very dangerous. Whoosh! 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 3 powerful attacks came at the same time. 2 of the attacks came from the second-tier A-class warriors. Shu Qiqi's expression changed. If she couldn't block it, she would die. She waved her sword and used her strongest move. Dang! She had already tried her best, but she could only block 2 attacks. There was another attack from the second-tier A-class warrior that she couldn't block in time. The sharp blade was about to stab her vital part from the side. Whoosh! At the critical moment, a cool breeze blew past. The cold gleam of the sword flickered and knocked away the blade that was attacking Shu Qiqi. Baka! A short middle-aged man shouted angrily. He was the one who had attacked with the blade. A Japanese? Jiang Xi's expression turned cold. Killing intent burst out from his body. Whoosh! He exerted force with his feet and used his body to lead the sword. The long sword stabbed out like lightning. For testicles. The Japanese man was shocked. He took a step back and tried to dodge. However, his speed was far inferior to Jiang Xi's. Pht! The killer's shadow sword streaked across the air and pierced his throat, killing him in one blow. After killing the man, Jiang Xi remembered that the Japanese had been destroyed by the sea monsters in the early days of the Spirit Qi revival. This Japanese man should be a wandering warrior. Chapter 141. Jiang Xi's attack shocked all the A-class martial artists present. Whether it was the Xia Empire's martial artists or the foreign martial artists, they all forgot to make a move. Their shocked gazes converged on Jiang Xi's body. Killing a second-tier A-class martial artist with one slash? Who was this young man? Was he at the Spirit Yun stage? However, they couldn't feel the spiritual pressure of a Spirit Yun stage martial artist from Jiang Xi's body. Jiang Xi. You. Shu Qiqi was the first to react. She was shocked. Her voice was filled with disbelief. Seventh sister. Jiang Xi smiled and nodded. When he first entered the heaven-level training camp, Shu Qiqi gave him a lot of help. Then, Jiang Xi turned his gaze to all the A-class martial artists present and said coldly, "This place belongs to my Xia Empire. If you take another step forward, don't blame me for being ruthless." Although his current strength wasn't as good as the first-tier Spirit Yun stage martial artists, he had the speed of a Spirit Yun stage martial artist. Dealing with these A-class martial artists was a piece of cake for him because he had the speed of a Spirit Yun stage martial artist. As soon as he said that, some of the foreign A-class martial artists had the intention to retreat. There are so many of us, why should we be afraid of him? Let's kill him together. Someone suddenly shouted in a foreign language. In the distance, William, who was fighting with Huang Kun and the others, also shouted, "Kill that kid." Jiang Xi sneered and looked at the back of the foreign martial artists. Feng Xian, Zhong Su, and Sam were hiding there. The sentence just now was shouted by Feng Xian. Although he used a foreign language, his voice didn't change. Jiang Xi recognized it immediately. "You're courting death." Without waiting for the foreign martial artists to make a move, Jiang Xi took the lead and used the wind shadow step. His figure flashed as he wanted to pass through the crowd and kill Feng Xian. "Kill him." Feng Xian was a little frightened and quickly shouted again. The foreign martial artists besieged him. "You really think you're at home?" Jiang Xi laughed angrily. Under the siege, he stepped lightly and his figure flashed like the wind, perfectly dodging everyone's attacks. Shu Qiqi shouted, "Are you trying to bully us? Let's go." The dozens of Great Xia Kingdom's A-rank martial artists also recovered from their shock and attacked the foreign martial artists. As a result, the pressure on Riverward suddenly decreased, and he began to counterattack, continuously attacking with his sword. The killing shadow sword was as fast as lightning. PFFF, instantly, 5 A-class martial artists fell to the ground, killed by him. In just 5 seconds. Killing an A-class martial artist in 1 second. With this kind of killing speed, it seemed that these 20 or so foreign martial artists were not enough for him to kill. "Haha, good. Kill them all." Huang Kun laughed heartily. Hei's surprise. She didn't expect that Jiangxi had become so strong. She was only 1 step away from the spirit gathering stage. Lu Rong Rong Rong, Lu Rong Rong Rong. He had heard of Jiang Xi before, but he didn't pay much attention to him. Unlike the 3 of them, the 4 foreign Spirit Yun stage martial artists were shocked. Their faces were ugly. Jiang Xi's sudden appearance made their plan to snatch the lotuses fail. William. The Spirit Yun stage martial artist, Johnson, of the Sacred Alliance gave a signal to the Spirit Yun stage martial artist, William. William understood the signal. Among the 4 of them, only William had a chance to escape. The other three were entangled by Huang Kun and the others. On this side, Jiang Xi was in the mood to kill. The only pity was that because of these people, Feng Xian escaped. Kill! The sword flashed, so fast that it was hard to block. In the blink of an eye, another 3 people were killed. The remaining foreign grade A martial artists who were still alive were all shocked, and the thought of retreating rose in their hearts. Suddenly, Jiang Xi's hair trembled. His sharp spirit sense told him that there was danger. Be careful. A few anxious shouts sounded at the same time. It was Huang Kun and the others who warned him. Jiang Xi caught a glimpse of a cold light from the corner of his eyes. Before Huang Kun and the others finished speaking, a cold light had already appeared beside him. After the cold light, it was the white brawny man, the early Spirit Yun stage martial artist, William. Almost instantly, Jiang Xi responded. The mysterious footwork of the wind shadow step turned, and the long sword slashed out more than 100 times in an instant. Bang! The cold light hit the body of the killing shadow sword. A strong force, together with the long sword, fell on Jiang Xi's body and exploded in an instant. Boom! Jiang Xi was sent flying, like a cannonball, and heavily smashed into a mountain peak 1,000 meters away. The mountain peak, which was dozens of meters high, was torn apart and turned into a pile of rubble. Genius? You're not a genius if you're dead. William sneered. Jiang Xi. Huang Kun and the others were very anxious. Especially Huang Kun. In his eyes, Jiang Xi was more important than the hundreds of lotuses in the lake. No matter how strong Jiang Xi was, he was still an A-level martial artist. Could he block the attack of an early Spirit Yun stage martial artist? A figure jumped up from the rubble and ran wildly into the distance. Blood kept flowing out of his mouth. Crack! The killing shadow sword made of a level alloy was full of cracks and cracked. Jiang Xi was seriously injured. He's not dead? William was stunned. That was his strongest attack just now. Even a mid-stage Spirit Yun stage martial artist might not be able to block it. You can't escape this time. He saw that Jiang Xi's injuries were very serious, and his speed had slowed down a lot. He took a step forward and traversed 7,000 to 8,000 meters. A cold light flashed, and he attacked again. If Jiang Xi was hit by him again, he would definitely die. Huang Kun, Lu Rong, and He Tu were all crazy. They tried their best to rush over, but they were held back by Shaluk and Johnson. Damn it, I lost big time. Jiang Xi only felt that his internal organs had shifted positions. Fresh blood kept spurting out. It wasn't because he was weak, but because his opponent's methods were too insidious. If he faced the attack head-on, he might have the strength to retaliate, but William's sneak attack caught him off guard and caused him to be seriously injured. It's really dangerous this time. Jiang Xi's face was solemn. Because of his injuries, it was hard for him to use his speed. Behind him, William was getting closer and closer. Go to hell! William shouted excitedly. He was excited because he was about to eliminate the young genius of the Dexia kingdom. Humph! Suddenly, a cold snort echoed on the peak of Mtong Tian. The fog in the sky instantly dissipated. An extremely strong spiritual pressure covered the entire area. William, who was about to catch up to Jiang Xi, seemed to have been attacked by some invisible force. His face turned pale, and he staggered to a stop. While everyone was still in shock, a group of 3 people slowly walked over from afar. 2 men and 1 woman. All of them looked young. There was a man and a woman walking side by side at the front. Their appearance stunned everyone. The young man in black had a sharp face. His eyes were bright and full of vigor, hiding some vicissitudes of life. He emitted a spiritual pressure that made people not dare to look at him directly. The woman in white was very beautiful, but her cold expression made it seem like she wanted to keep people 1,000 miles away. Her powerful aura made people automatically ignore her beautiful appearance. Xian Tian. Li Bai Bai. the world's #1 and #2 martial arts experts. The two experts had arrived personally. Chapter 142. Behind Xian Tian and Li Baibai, there is a young man in white. Many people know him. Xian Tian's guard, White Cloud, is also a powerful spirit-gathering stage martial artist. White Cloud, Black Earth, Genten Budokan's two great guards. Both of them have made a name for themselves in the martial arts world. Can you still hold on? Xian Tian smiled and walked to the front of Jiang Xi. Jiang Xi was a little confused and nodded subconsciously. Very good, you did a good job. Xian Tian smiled and turned to White Cloud, healed Jiang Xi. Then, he walked to the front of William. At this time, William did not dare to move at all, and his face was full of horror. Xian Tian. William opened his mouth in awkward Mandarin, and his trembling voice had a hint of pleading. I am a very fair person, and I will not bully the weak. You hit my people, and I will help him get back at you. It shouldn't be too much, right? Xian Tian chuckled. Spare me. William's body was trembling. Smile, I won't kill you. Xian Tian smiled. William squeezed out an ugly smile on his face. That's right. Xian Tian nodded gently. William breathed a sigh of relief. Boom! Suddenly, Xian Tian kicked out, and William was directly kicked away. Boom! Boom! William's strong body flew out more than 10 times the speed of sound, and smashed on the top of the mountain, smashing one peak after another. Finally, his whole body was embedded in a peak. A powerful spirit-gathering stage martial artist was actually defeated by Xian Tian's kick. Everyone was dumbfounded. You can testify that I didn't kill him. Xian Tian shrugged. Li Baibai shook his head gently, somewhat helpless. Jiang Xi was still vomiting blood, but he was shocked by this scene and the blood was stuck in his throat. Cough cough, for some reason, he felt that this legendary dojo master, the world's #1 expert, was somewhat different. Don't be surprised. Master is such a person. White Cloud smiled and handed Jiang Xi a small blue medicine bottle. This is a healing medicine specially made with phase. After drinking it, your injuries will be healed very quickly. Thank you. Jiang Xi took it and drank it without asking any questions, and energy that contained rich vitality quickly circulated throughout his body. The injuries on his body were also recovering rapidly. How magical! Jiang Xi was amazed. Watch carefully. Master is about to make his move again, White Cloud reminded. Jiang Xi hurriedly looked over. On the field, everyone was shocked by Xian Tian. No one dared to make a move. Xian Tian and Li Baibai walked side by side to the lotus heads by the lakeside. Looking up from this direction, they could still see hundreds of lotus heads in the center of the lake. There are so many thousand-year-old fays. I was careless. I was careless. I almost made a mistake. Xian Tian patted his forehead. It should be because of the third spirit chi awakening that some changes have occurred here. When we came a few days ago, these were not here yet. Li Baibai said. While the two were chatting. Not far away, Sharuk, Johansson, and Ivan, 3 foreign spirit-nurturing stage martial artists, were too tense to move. It seemed that no one paid attention to them, but there were two extremely strong spiritual pressure that had been enveloping them. At this time, the 3 of them were full of fear and regret. 2 hours ago, they learned about the changes here through the spies planted in the training camp and immediately rushed over. They wanted to take this opportunity to explore the secret of Xian Tian and Li Baibai's rise in the Jade Lake secret realm. Before they came, they were full of confidence. Because of the third spirit chi awakening some time ago, their strength had improved and they had gained a lot. Especially Sharuk of the Peacock Country and Johansson of the Sacred Alliance, these 2 mid-stage spirit-nurturing stage martial artists, thought that they had the strength to challenge Xian Tian and Li Baibai. But now, when they saw Xian Tian and Li Baibai, they realized that they were still far behind. With one kick, William, who was at the early stage spirit nurturing stage, could easily cripple them. Yes, William had been crippled. With the unique spiritual sense of the spirit nurturing stage, they just scanned and knew that William's bones and meridians were shattered. Although he was not dead, he was really crippled. When the three of them were uneasy and became more and more nervous, Xian Tian finally turned his gaze to them and chuckled. I said, everything here belongs to my great Xia. You should have no objections, right? Sharuk and others quickly shook their heads. Don't joke, who dares to have objections? Jiang Xi is my man. You should all remember that, right? Sharuk and others hurriedly nodded. Very well, with all of you as witnesses, if anything happens to Jiang Xi in the future, I will take a knife and kill all the young talents of your country. When Xian Tian spoke, there was no murderous intent. He revealed a mouthful of big white teeth and smiled brightly. Sharuk and the others shuddered. In the distance, White Cloud smiled and said, Jiang Xi, you don't have to keep a low profile in the future. Jiang Xi nodded gently, his mood a little complicated. The world's strongest person personally supported him. So domineering, I like it. At this time, Xian Tian shouted, White Cloud, send the list you compiled to these three friends. List? Everyone was puzzled. Only Sharuk and the other two secretly felt that something was wrong. White Cloud ran over and sent a document to the three of them with his tactical communications watch. When they saw the contents of the document, their expressions changed. Xian Tian chuckled and said, the students on the list are all your people. I have helped you train them for so long and spent a lot of resources. It shouldn't be too much for you to pay their tuition fees, right? Sharuk, Johansen, and Ivan came from the Peacock Nation, the Holy Alliance, and Alpha Star, respectively. They all held high positions in their respective countries. Naturally, they had an impression of the spies they had planted in the Gen 10 Budokan training camp. Usually, the spies could hide their identities in the training camp through various measures. This time, in order to convey the information of the changes in the Tongtian mountain, the spies had a high possibility of their identities being exposed due to the lack of confidentiality measures. In the end, Gen 10 Budokan found all the spies. How much? Sharuk asked with an ugly expression. I don't want much. 1,000-year-old Fei or something of equivalent value each. I don't accept payment in installments, Xian Tian said with a smile. This was a blatant robbery. Of course, if you don't want to pay, you can be like the one from the Dark Shadow Nation and let me kick you. Then, you don't have to pay. This was a blatant threat. How could it be good to be kicked? In the end, the three of them handed over something of equivalent value to the 1,000-year-old Fei with bleeding hearts. Sharuk handed over an old sheepskin scroll full of Sanskrit. Johansen handed over a simple dagger. Ivan was slightly weaker and didn't have as much wealth as the other two. He took out trillions of new moon dollars and handed over his usual weapon. Only then was the matter settled. Xian Tian threw these things to White Cloud and asked White Cloud to keep them. Then, he shouted to the foreign martial artists, you. Someone from the Dark Shadow Nation, come out. Everyone looked at each other. Who dared to move? Many people looked at Sam, who was hiding in the back. He was an A-rank martial artist from the Dark Shadow Nation and was very famous. It's you. Take your boss away. Xian Tian pointed at Sam. Sam's face was dark as he trembled with fear and went over to bring back the crippled William. At this time, Xian Tian waved to Sharuk and the others. Okay, you can go now. Remember to take everyone away. Finally, you are welcome to come again, but you must prepare the tuition fees in advance. These foreign martial artists, led by Sharuk, Johansen, and Ivan, quickly went down the mountain with sullen faces. They swore that they would never come to Great Xia again. The people of Great Xia were all bandits. Chapter 143. After Xian Tian's deterrence, Only the martial artists from the Xia kingdom were left at the top of Mount Tongtian. Xian Tian and Li Baibai first went over to greet Huang Kun to show their respect. Then, together with Lu Rong, White Cloud, and He Tu, a total of 6 martial artists from the Xia kingdom walked to the lake together to observe the lotus pods. Xian Tian, you mean, these spiritual plants have just grown in the past few days? Huang Kun was very surprised. That's right. 5 days ago, Li Baibai and I came here and checked the entire Jade Lake secret realm. We were worried that the third spirit chi revival would cause changes to this place. Shen-Tian nodded. I just didn't expect that there would still be an oversight. Li Baibai added. The spirit chi revival is indeed magical and mysterious. Lu Rong also sighed. In the distance, Jiang Xi stood together with many A-class martial artists. These people came from various martial artist forces in the Xia kingdom. Some of them were even from reclusive families. They were all very famous in the circle of A-class martial artists. Except for the young Shu Qiqi, everyone else had made a name for themselves. But at this time, everyone greeted Jiang Xi warmly and took the initiative to make friends with him. They had all seen Jiang Xi's strength just now. In the chaotic battle, 8 foreign A-class martial artists, 2 of which even had the strength of the second tier of A-class, were easily killed by Jiang Xi. In other words, if they were to face Jiang Xi, the result might not be any better. Jiang Xi politely exchanged contact information with everyone. He could handle this kind of situation with ease. At the same time, he was also very emotional. This was the world where the strong preyed on the weak. When you were weak, no matter how much you paid, it was difficult to enter the higher circles. But when you were strong, those circles would take the initiative to approach you. If you were in full bloom, a cool breeze would come. That was the principle. Shu Qiqi knew Jiang Xi, so she didn't join in the fun. She could also be considered as a witness to Jiang Xi's growth. In less than a year, Jiang Xi went from a genius trainee in the heaven-level training camp to a top A-class martial artist in the world. He was sought after by many powerhouses. Shu Qiqi sighed in her heart. Yingxue, what kind of monster do you like? She was worried for her cousin Han Yingxue. While everyone was chatting, in the distance, Xian Tian and the others seemed to have discussed something. Bai shouted from afar, all of you, retreat to 10,000 meters away. Everyone retreated 10,000 meters away with doubt. They each found a high peak and stood on it, looking over there. Of Yingxian 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 Yingshuan Wen He Yingxian Yingxian Ying. Yingxian Yingxian Yuan Yingxian Yingxian. Yingxian Yingxian Ying of Yingdaf Yingxian. Apart from the hundreds of thousand-year-old lotus seed pods in the center of the lake, there were also dozens of them by the lakeside, which were within reach. However, several masters of the spirit formation stage did not rush to make a move. It seems that there should be a big guy sleeping at the bottom of the lake. Even with my spiritual sense, I can only vaguely sense a strong aura, but I can't detect the specific situation. Xian Tian's expression became serious. Li Baibai also nodded. Even the 2 of you can't detect it. Huang Kun and Lu Rong's expressions changed. Xian Tian was just serious for a moment, and then he suddenly laughed. Don't be so serious. With the current concentration of spiritual qi, there won't be any existence above the spirit nurturing stage. White Cloud and He Tu's hearts skipped a beat when they saw their master making such a solemn vow. Li Baibai also understood Xian Tian very well. She gently touched her forehead helplessly. Huang Kun and Lu Rong were at a loss. What? You don't believe me? Just now, we agreed that whoever solves the danger at the bottom of the lake will get an extra 10% of the spiritual items. Xian Tian smiled, put his hand on the saber handle, and acted as if he was about to make a move. Then let me try first. Lu Rong took a step forward with his staff. Xian Tian and Li Baibai tacitly retreated, as if they had been waiting for this sentence. White Cloud and He Tu naturally followed Xian Tian's rhythm. Huang Kun also had no intention to compete. With a smile on his face, he sat calmly on the fishing platform. Because he represented the Great Xia Kingdom's official. No matter how these spiritual items were distributed, the spiritual items he brought back in the end would not be less. Even if he really took less, it didn't matter. He was very open-minded, as long as these spiritual items did not fall into the hands of foreigners. At this moment, Lu Rong took a deep breath, and the spiritual qi around his body began to gather, rolling up bursts of whirlwinds. Immediately after, he jumped up, crossed a few thousand meters in the air, and arrived above the lake. The long staff turned into a huge staff shadow, waved like a dragon, and smashed straight at the lake's surface. "Come out!" Lu Rong shouted. Boom! The lake's surface exploded, setting off huge waves that were dozens of meters high, forming a huge whirlpool. Woo! Suddenly, an earth-shattering roar resounded through heaven and earth. At the same time, the lake's surface shook violently, and the whirlpool became turbulent, creating a strong suction force. All of a sudden, a white shadow swept out from under the water. Upon closer inspection, it was a crystal white bone that was hundreds of meters long. Retreat! Lu Rong was shocked. However, he was in the air and had nowhere to borrow strength, so he couldn't dodge at all. He was instantly swept by the huge white bone. Bang! Accompanied by a huge impact, he was directly sent flying. His figure whistled and disappeared into the horizon. What a huge white bone! Could it be an undead creature? Jiang Xi's breathing stagnated, and he was stunned. Even Lu Rong, who was in the mid-stage of spirit nurture, couldn't block a single attack. Furthermore, this was only a white bone. How big was the white bone under the water? Splash! Huge waves slammed against the lake shore, and a rapid whirlpool rose into the sky, forming a waterspout. Under everyone's gaze, a huge white bone figure rushed out of the water, walked on the water, and roared at the sky. A strong aura suddenly spread out. This was a skeleton of the tiger tribe, and it was 100 meters tall and 400 meters long. What had sent Lu Rong flying earlier was its 100-meter-long white-bone tiger tail. Although the dozens of the Xia Kingdom's A-class martial artists were 10,000 meters away, they felt a strong spiritual pressure that made it hard for them to breathe. Could it be an undead creature transformed from the wind demon white tiger? Jiang Xi felt better, but he was still shocked. All of you, retreat further. This time, it was the Xian Tian who shouted at them. Everyone flew back another 10,000 meters, and the spiritual pressure from the skeleton of the tiger tribe became much lighter, and they could withstand it. Jiang Xi's endurance was much better than theirs, and he didn't retreat too far. He had been observing the battle situation in the distance. The huge skeleton of the tiger tribe stepped on the water, staring at the people by the lake covetously. At this moment, Li Bai shouted, "Let me try." She turned into a streak of white light and flew out. The long sword in her hand instantly condensed a layer of pure spiritual energy, and its power was astonishing, and it went straight for the huge skeleton of the tiger tribe. 9-element sword technique. Her famous ultimate move. The speed of the sword was so fast that even its afterimage couldn't be seen, and it was beyond the speed that ordinary people could catch. Clang! Clang! The skeleton of the tiger tribe's white-bone tiger tail was not slower than Li Bai, and it was even faster. It blocked all of Li Bai's fast sword attacks. Whoosh! The white-bone tiger tail made a shocking sound, and it swept toward Li Bai. It seemed that Li Bai was about to fall into the same situation as Lu Rong, where she couldn't borrow strength in the air and was hit by the white bone. Suddenly, her footsteps became illusory, and it was as if she was stepping on stairs, and she moved hundreds of meters in the air. Walking in the air. This scene shocked everyone once again. You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.